Welcome to our Operations and Monitoring meeting for this morning. We've got a number of staff and also some guests in the police, which we look forward to welcoming them to the table this morning to present. But we also want to welcome those who are live streaming and our media, including a new person, Sammy, who's here on work experience, so welcome. I'd like to open our meeting by asking Councillor Kumar to please open us with the karakia.
Tu tau mai ai runga, tu tau mai ai raro, tu tau mai ai roto, tu tau mai ai waho, kia tau ai te, mauri tu, te mauri ora ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, taiki e. I summon from above, I summon from below, I summon from within, I summon the surrounding environment, the universal vitality and energy to infuse and enrich all present, enrich, unified and blessed. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Councillor Kumar.
Madam Chair, just before we continue, just from the Indian community today is our auspicious Happy Diwali Day. It's the most auspicious day on our calendar. So to everyone from all Hindus across the world, Happy Diwali.
Happy Diwali.
To peace and prosperity.
Thank you, Councillor Kumar, for reminding us. We'll move into apologies. I do have an apology from Councillor Donaldson, who is hosting the Minister, and also from Mr Hurd for lateness as well. Can I please have a mover? Moved Councillor Kumar, seconded by Councillor Kaifong. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried, thank you.
Madam Chair, for early departure at 10:30 for a Diwali festival.
Okay, we'll note that. Thank you, Councillor Kumar. Any declarations of interest for this morning? Any urgent items not on the agenda? There appear to be none. We'll move to the confirmation of minutes for the Operations and Monitoring Committee meeting on the 7th of October. I may ask for a mover and a seconder that the motion for this to be confirmed as true and correct record. Moved by Her Worship the Mayor, seconded by Councillor Yates. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried, thank you. We are into our staff reports now. Sorry, Councillor McPherson, do you have a question? Okay. We're into our staff reports now on page 11. We have our Community Safety Plan Progress Update, and I'd like to ask firstly for a mover and a seconder to receive the report, that the report Community Safety Plan Progress Update be received. Moved Councillor Okawa-Tate, seconded Mr Waru. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. I'd like to invite Kurt Williams, Richard Horn, Suzanne Craig, and I think Craig Titiana as well, up to speak to it. And I believe Mike may be joining us too. So welcome to the table. And we have a PowerPoint presentation from them as well. When they're going through the PowerPoint presentation, if you do have any questions, just please hold those and we'll ask them at the end, at the conclusion. Well, I hand it over to you guys. Welcome.
Kia ora koutou. Look, I'll be quite brief actually. I've got the actual pleasure of introducing this group to talk to you this morning about the community safety. Obviously with Jocelyn being away at the Chief Executive's office, we are working to support that. So what we've got here is a collection of, normally at this time of the year you'd get a summer safety update, but because of some decisions you made in the long-term plan and also a bit earlier in the year, this is more of an update of where we're up to with the draft community safety plan, and this is on an operational front. So these are the people that are actually doing things to bring that draft into action. So it's probably better if I'll let Kurt start talking you through the presentation that he's been able to do. But also thanks very much to Mike coming across. Mike works very closely with the operational arm here. So I think that's probably the best I can do.
Morning everybody. Thank you for the opportunity for us to come and present to you today. There has been a lot of hard work across the board go into this space, particularly since March this year. So we appreciate the opportunity to come and let you know where we've got to. So I'd like to start with a little background and a reminder of where we have come from to get to where we are today. So Council in the community safety space, of course, has an obligation for community good. And that includes playing our part to make sure that our city and the entire district is a safe and attractive place for everyone, whether they be locals or visitors. The importance of community safety, and that's improving and maintaining it, of course, came up through and was reiterated through the discussions that led to what we now know as the 2021 and 2033 long-term plan. This subject has continued to remain a key focus for us as we move our district forward. To assist with improving where we are in that space, and particularly around both community safety and crime prevention in general in Rotorua, Council agreed to invest a further $500,000 per annum for us to utilise towards improving where we are in community safety. So this equates to roughly $5 million across the term of the long-term plan. Key to that is the collaborative partnership that we have as Council with the police and other key stakeholders. That had already been formed, if you recall, back in December 2018, and we originally termed it as a summer safety campaign. That was in response to feedback that we were getting from our retailers and from visitors and locals particularly about the CBD at that time. So this partnership involved an increase in our CCTV monitoring that we do here at Council, and the increased assistance from local security partners and our linkage, importantly, with the police. So this campaign has continued to fluctuate in response to trends that we're seeing at any particular time, and in response to the seasons as well. So as we move into the warmer months, the summer months, of course, we do see more activity out there on the street, and we need to up our game in those months to ensure that we keep in a good space. The photo on the first slide that you will have seen actually demonstrates some of the expansion that has happened, and this is something that we spoke about in the last O&M meeting that has continued from our COVID-19 response. And that picture pictured out east side in this particular instance, that showed our council staff in the patrolling vehicle, assisted by one of our security partners as well. So that's what some of the public are seeing out there driving around at the moment. So really importantly, as all partners in where we're going do share the desire to achieve the community objectives that are contained in the draft community safety plan that you all approved in March this year.
Morena, before I talk to this next slide, I would like to acknowledge, given that we are about to talk about them throughout this presentation, some of our Safe City Guardian patrollers who are sitting behind me at the moment. So we have Eddie, Dana, Jenna, and Marcel. So as Kurt has already stated the community safety plan, which was recently adopted as a draft. Within that was some strategic direction and some objectives. These included our relationships and linkages with our community patrols. So better working with and liaising with some of the other community patrols out there, extending our footprint across some of the urban areas, strong connections with neighbourhood support and Māori wardens. We are also working very closely with our contract security teams, and we will better utilise and grow our capability around CPTED, so crime prevention through environmental design, across some of these other open spaces. We will also be working with better linkages across our regulatory team to assist in reducing the alcohol and drug harm in collaboration with police, Toi Te Ora, Public Health and District Licensing Committee.
Morning, everyone. What does collaboration look like? It's long-winded question, and it's got myriads of parts to it, but at this stage, police, safe city guardians, the CCTV camera operators, security staff continue to provide a joined-up approach and have so over a number of years, and we have a zero tolerance towards antisocial behaviour, particularly in the CBD or the shopping centres out in our suburbs. Joint communications are maintained between police and the CCTV police patrol staff. COVID's made this a little bit issue with our meetings, so we're doing it remotely and sharing detail via email, or you may see us walking the beat with each other so that we can share messages there. Increased monitoring of the council CCTV network for crime prevention purposes and direction of the patrollers has become the norm, and that's right across our Rotorua area, which is great to see. And obviously we've had patrol vehicles from council and pieces driving around, which is great. And you have a number of vehicles yourself from all your different work agencies that are actually capable guardians in this process. The trespass procedures have continued to be utilised to help stamp out some of those antisocial behaviours in our public spaces area, and it's been great from the councillors to extend some of the liquor banned areas around town, which has worked well for perceptions of safety for our community.
A few months ago, we also set up an internal working group. This was in recognition of the importance of continuing to expand our CCTV network and capabilities. And through that group, we've also brought in information and feedback from police and our own CCTV operators. The other thing that we have been doing through COVID, and in the same line as last year, level 4, our Safe City Guardians and security patrollers went into more of a property protection function across the inner city, given that the majority of the inner city was closed during level 4. And then as we've transitioned through the levels between 3 and 2 and businesses were allowed to open, we've supported through education and providing information to allow those businesses to operate in a safe manner as well. And then there's also the visual presence across actually it's not just the inner city, we covered off some of the district as well, utilising patrol vehicles during this period.
Also, we've got commitment from the police to increase visibility by working alongside the Guardians. This is actually a direction from the Commissioner of Police to strengthen partnerships nationally. So that's at the level where it sits with the New Zealand Police. Police and Council have been working together in partnership in more of a holistic approach to look at how the community can address some of the issues themselves. Also working together to model different operational response scenarios in the CBD. We also support events, special or regular ones like concerts, night markets, and obviously the alcohol ban extension. And engagement with Council at both operational and a governance strategic level through our Memorandum of Understanding. Oh, they only highlighted a little bit. Okay. With the extension of the daylight hours, what we've noticed, places getting warmer, which is great for our community. People are out and about. It's a beautiful city, it really is. Unfortunately, that brings other opportunities for some of the antisocial behaviour or some criminal behaviour, which does negatively impact on our city's reputation. Directly affects individuals and influences perception of safety. There's always been a degree of police demand around social economic factors in Rotorua. Centralisation of transitional housing has not disproportionately increased our demand. Police are aware that this is one location approach, which is obviously a visibility increase for the public awareness and perception of safety, and especially in the Fenton Street motel strip area and in the CBD. This is similar to other cities with transitional housing. This is not a Rotorua issue, it's a national issue. The police and guardians have seen an annual trend re-emerge of recent times of rough sleepers moving back out into our geothermal areas and sleeping outside of these facilities. With that, some antisocial behaviours have increased, but the majority in the CBD has decreased in recent times, and that is, my opinion, is directly linked to the regulatory involvement and the visibility of the city guardians.
So this slide here represents a short period, 4 weeks, of data from our patrol team, middle of September through to the middle of October. It's not necessarily undifferent to what we have previously reported on in regards to the types of incidents the team are reporting against. The big part of this and the change, I guess, is that it's not, doesn't just represent the inner city, this is across the district. So this is in conjunction with the vehicles that we have had patrolling throughout the other urban areas and providing intelligence and reporting incidents back through our fishbowl. So a big part of what we are doing is obviously supporting police and passing on information. You'll see on here in regards to some of this across the district stuff, there is one there that says it's about assisting emergency services. One of our vehicles did come across a landslide in one of the rural areas. That landslide wasn't in the city, which is why it's reported on here. And we consequently assisted emergency services with some traffic control. We report a little bit of the crime prevention through environmental design stuff, so impacts of trees on the CCTV system, and even other areas with crossing roads safely as well. As Mike just talked previously around some of these seasonal trends that we have, so the movement of people visibly back onto our streets with rough sleeping. In the last few weeks, we have actually come across 3 campsites, and when we come across those areas, we do work as closely as we can with known people to make sure they are aware of the available resources and help out there to get them out of those sites and get a roof over their heads. And obviously it's been reflected on there, about 48 dogs in the CBD. I think what that one there does reflect is the amount of visitors that are coming to Rotorua from the likes of Taupo or other small towns where dogs are allowed in some of those areas. So they're coming through and then taking their dogs for walks down the lakefront in some of these spaces. I believe there is a little bit of work being done in that area at the moment as well. This next slide, again, is just a snapshot from one day for the eastern area with one of our patrol vehicles. So this has just been pulled out of the GPS unit that is in the vehicle, and it's good because it gives us a good visual snapshot of the touch points in the areas that we are currently covering with the 2 vehicles. So it's not just the inner city, they're pushing right through up into the other eastern areas with this particular vehicle through to the Blue Lake area and Poketawhero and surrounding areas. This next one again is a snapshot from a 4-week period, middle of September through to October, and this one here is the CCTV monitoring. So 159 incidents recorded. A big chunk of those were ones that needed to and were passed directly on to police for follow-up and action. There are quite a few traffic incidents in there picked up by the CCTV team, including breakdowns of vehicles, damaged vehicles, might be vehicle accidents, and then in conjunction with information being fed through to the teams, stolen vehicles. We also, as previously have reported on, do lots of reviewing on behalf of police. So there's 51 lots there, again, for that short period. And just general notings where no further action required.
Morena councillors. Councillors, you may recall this slide back in February this year through the LTP workshop. We presented this slide to you as part of the community safety workshop. This slide indicates the proposed locations for the CCTV expansion throughout the district. Locations have been chosen for different reasons, such as providing better visibility of traffic, pedestrians, greater oversight on access routes in and out of Rotorua, improving RLC's ability to respond to police requests. Placing cameras in the wider district also supports other initiatives around the community safety and wellbeing initiatives. The list of priorities that we've put there, it's in no particular order. There are areas that have been identified in collaboration with the police and also with our community safety team. So within each of these locations, a site assessment is undertaken where we're taking into account the CPTED, so that crime prevention by design principles, but also looking at lighting in those locations, at foliage and also other structures. Part of the assessment that we are doing identifies the purpose and also the position of the CCTV. So that considers things like protecting council assets and investments, assisting with real-time police events, mitigating and deterring any antisocial behaviour, also enforcing community safety around schools, shopping centres, places of worship. There is planning underway on a number of these sites. Thanks, Kurt. So what we have here, and I apologise, the quality of the diagram isn't that great, so happy to share these slides with you later. But what we've identified here are obviously some objectives that we're trying to achieve on Fenton Street, but you can see that we identified 4 sites, so that's the red cameras that you'll see on the slide there. The result, and that's the result of the site assessments that have been done. So the 2 locations that we have implemented first or are implementing are the Malfroy in Fenton, Margarita in Fenton. They will be live within the next 3 months, and then we have, we're hoping, Fenton and Devon and Fenton and Sala will follow that. Lake Okaraka, this initiative we're working collaboratively with the Regional Council, and shown there on the right hand side are the objectives that we're trying to achieve here. We're hoping to have this site operational for the summer season. One of the challenges we're experiencing, and this is actually globally, is the availability of hardware. So this is causing some delays, and that's around the COVID-19. Te Putake o Tawa. Councillors will be familiar with the site as well. There are some cameras currently at the site. These are temporary. Again, we've got some challenges there with the availability of hardware. And this slide here is obviously councillors will be familiar with this location as part of the lakefront redevelopment. Further cameras will be provisioned on the site as stages are opened and completed. The first stage where these cameras are located, again, we're hoping to have that completed in 3 months' time.
This next short video clip is actually been pulled from Police 10-7, which was aired last week, and I think it's perfect timing, but it's great in the fact that it clearly shows the relationship that we have with police, our working relationship, the value added with a good CCTV network, which we do need to expand on, and also how much value is added by having good CCTV operators in the fishbowl, coordinating a response and passing and directing information through to police. Report
of a stolen vehicle coming in from a different area of Rotorua. It appears that the vehicle was stolen from Oporaki this morning, so we're not too far from its location, so we're going to try and stop it and see what the goal is.
A city camera operator has spotted a Toyota that's been reported stolen, travelling through Rotorua, so constables James Shelford and Nicole Douglas head out towards where it was last seen.
Camera's full, brother. Have you got obs on?
Firm at code 2 colour up point light.
Get ready to go right. Is it going straight through?
Firm.
Just pull over. Copy. We are on BP on Ferry Springs. Just like pull in here.
Behind you, that unit that's just come up all crew.
Yeah, A-firm, just pulling over now.
With the Toyota heading towards them, James and Nicole pull over to let it go past.
Jeez. green Avensis.
Vehicle that unit.
Ready? Don't light it up. Comms are rifle, Bravo. Yeah, just following a stolen vehicle. Ferry Springs Road, just passing Maisie Place. Just going to wait for some other units to get in some sort of position.
Don't hold, follow driving.
Just approaching Kotu lights. Turning left onto Lake Road.
I'll be REM's at Rotorua.
Copy. Are you happy for us to look at lighting it up?
Just let me set up on the other side of the bridge.
Copy. Let me know when you're ready, RE November.
Setting up now.
Copy. We'll light it up in a second.
With a unit ready to set up spikes if the driver decides to flee, it's time to make the stop.
Just lights on now. Indicating to pull over outside Karaka Street.
I'll stay here just in case he takes off.
Yeah, copy. Come straight here with that vehicle, Lake Road by Karaka Street.
Copy, thank you.
But this driver isn't getting ready to run. He's totally confused by the police attention.
Kia ora, can you turn the car off, please?
Oh, it's off.
Okay, I'm just going to go the key for a second, okay? Whose car is this? Oh, okay. What's your relationship to her?
No, it's a fella.
Fella, sorry.
He's a mate of mine.
Mate of yours, okay. So this car's been reported stolen.
Oh, yeah.
How long have you had it for?
2 nights.
2 nights.
Oh, when was it reported stolen?
This morning.
Thanks, Susie.
Are you from Oporiki?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just came back here now.
Okay.
So I will just confirm, so the majority of that narrative that you were seeing on there was from our fishbowl, so our CCTV operator, passing on information. This so the vehicle had earlier been reported stolen from Oporiki and was flagged through to the fishbowl as a vehicle of interest once the registration of that vehicle was noted by the CCTV operator, and then tracked through the city. He's picked it up through the story at Ferry Springs Road. So again, some very good collaboration, but again, we've talked about the need to expand the CCTV network. These are some of the drivers for that. But it's not just the CCTV network, it's about having the right people sitting in those positions and the relationship directly with police so that we can talk and direct those sorts of responses at that level.
Thanks, Richard. So hopefully what you've all seen from the presentation today is there is a lot of hard work going on around the place, particularly in regards to collaboration, and all of the team members involved are all working really, really hard each day to make a safer tomorrow for our community. So we need to set ourselves up in the best position to achieve the objectives that we have in the community safety plan. And what we're doing in regards to that, we're currently going through recruitment for an additional 6 Safe City Guardians, and that's for the patrolling aspect of that. That'll raise our total number from the current 4 patrollers through to 10. So this is intended to be part of a move to actually, for council to own this part of this response a lot closer, and will actually replace the current security contractors that are out there on the street, hopefully around sort of early next year, just depending on how that recruitment goes. So that will enable us to continue to provide effective and efficient patrol services and also reduce the current costs for providing the services. Also, you will have seen the importance of that intel that's coming through the CCTV room in a lot of these responses as well. So part of the drive forward is also to recruit an additional 2 CCTV monitoring staff. Really, really important for us. We do have times at the moment where, through allowing for annual leave and sickness and all of the usual things, where that room does currently go unmanned for periods of time. So we want to increase our ability to do what we need to for the community in that space, and to get more flexibility around the hours that we monitor as well. So essentially that does provide us with the opportunity as well to look at how we are using those resources that are out and about in the community, and to look at some cost-saving measures across the board there as well, so that we reduce the chances of having multiple council staff going to the same locations within a day. So a little bit of a chance to look at efficiencies in there, and also to look at the current branding of the vehicles and staff that we have out there to ensure that the community are being reassured that when they're seeing us out there, they know that this is part of Council's collective approach to address any issues that we are having. The patrol vehicles themselves, we're also looking at, as part of the drawing back to ourselves, providing those services to those vehicles also being council vehicles, and continuing to push out further than the CBD into residential areas, all with the intent of providing additional deterrence and detection value. So a lot of what we're doing collectively is all around prevention. So, I'll just check. That's you, Rich.
So some of the other things that we will continuously or carry on working on is to some of these other initiatives to strengthen our relationships and connections with the likes of the Māori Wardens, police and other groups like neighbourhood support. We haven't mentioned it yet, but we have mentioned it previously, our CCTV trailer. We will actively utilise this resource across the district over the summer period, and in conjunction with police around some of our trend hotspots, if you like, we will place this as a deterrent. We'll also look at how we can maybe cover off some of this lower level crime that negatively impacts perception, and one of those actually currently is graffiti. So if we can come up with a process of where we can actively capture where graffiti is and then look at trying to remove it, especially if it's on public spaces, in a timely manner. And as has already been talked about in regards to CCTV, subject to available funding, the CCTV camera network will continue to expand in a measured fashion, taking into account any emerging priority areas with the objective to add value and increase safety and perceptions across the wider district. Our summer CCTV campaign, I suppose, has kicked off, and as a result, our patrollers and the CCTV operators have moved into our summer operator roster. So we have expanded our operational hours, and we maintain some good flexibility with our teams in regards to specific trends and some of those busier days and holiday periods as well. We'll continue to focus on improving collaboration and intel and utilising technology to support crime prevention moving forward as well. All of these actions and the associated funding are vital to ensure that Council, in conjunction with our key partners, are available to deliver on the objectives adopted by the Council in the draft Community Safety Plan, and this will definitely help ensure Rotorua's public spaces are the safest in the country and lead to a more favourable public perceptions of safety.
Okay, so thank you for bearing with us. I know it's been a fairly lengthy presentation, but we felt it was important just to let you all know and fill you all in on the sheer amount of work that and planning and doing that has been going on since March, when the draft Community Safety Plan was approved. So with that, we're certainly happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Councillor McPherson, followed by Councillor Kumar.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Through you, Kurt, colleagues back here, I wanted to acknowledge the excellent work that you're doing and provide a heads up. This comes without criticism from Grey Power and from Rotorua District residents and ratepayers, very concerned about the safety of elderly pedestrians trying to cross Fenton Street from Pack and Save North. That area can be a bit of a racetrack, and it's quite difficult sometimes for elderly pedestrians to get across. There's only, I think, 2 sets of lights which allow people to cross. So if some attention could be given to that question, that'd be much appreciated. But as for the general presentation, thanks a million.
Thank you. Councillor Kumar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everyone. Very good presentation and seeing good collaboration there. Just a couple of things that I have a couple of questions I've got. I see, Susan, Kurt, you mentioned unmanned hours of CCTV, but this is all because it's good for the community. So while those hours are unmanned, it is still recording. If there is an incident, is the public or do the public have access to that? And my other question is, we are trying to protect council, as Susan has mentioned. Now, this would have happened if a lot of the assets are now being damaged, and in particular areas. How much damage, is there any data as to how much damage there has been so far for us to sort of concentrate on this? And my last question is, we talk about antisocial behavior, and Mike, you've mentioned that there's zero tolerance towards antisocial behavior. What do you mean when you say zero tolerance? Because a lot of times there are drunk and disorderly people in the CBD, as expressed by a lot of the store operators there. How do we tolerate antisocial behavior when they have alcohol in their hand? Police come and slap them with a wet bus ticket or talk to them to go away, but the alcohol is not taken off them.
Through you, Madam Chair. So just to start with your first question, yes, and the CCTV cameras are continuously recording. So even in the event that we do not have staff in there, we do have the ability to review that footage. Secondly, the public requests for information around footage are screened. We have to do that in relation to everything to do with CCTV. Has to be in conjunction with the Privacy Commissioner's requirements. So we put it through a legal test to see whether that footage request should actually be released. Thirdly, the damage to public or assets, if you like, we do have information on that, but I'm unable to confirm today, I'm sorry, just what that percentage would be.
Did we want to, and there was just the final question from Mike, if you wish, around the zero tolerance.
Zero tolerance, it's about police interactions with people. So we're governed by the Solicitor General's prosecution guidelines. Okay, so we just don't arrest people hand over fist, we're not allowed to. Their evidential sufficiency is the first part. Second part to that is in the public interest. Okay. If it's in the public interest but not evidential sufficient, we don't deal with it. So first bit is the most important thing, and we try to keep people away from the court system these days, and for a really, really good reason. It has an effect on serious crime, and some of the minor stuff not really the same effect that we'd hope. So we'll look at more of a holistic approach around if they've got issue with alcohol. But as an adult over the age of 18, not have alcohol in a public place is not an offence, okay? Unless it's in the area where you as a councillor have said it is. So, yeah, so it's a really real balancing act. But yeah, I think the interaction is what is needed more than what maybe the enforcement action outside of that.
I believe as part of this, what zero tolerance means for our operational teams, and through the different meetings that we collectively attend together and other contractors, zero tolerance is about a very collective, consistent approach to things. And for our teams, it means if they are dealing with any antisocial behaviours that need to be reported to police, then they do so straight away, and they don't allow something to go. And we share that same message across the other groups that we talk with as well. So then it doesn't matter whether or not you're talking to someone in a blue uniform, someone in one of these orange uniforms, or even one of us. If the messaging is the same and we don't think that what you're saying or what you're doing is right and correct, that collective approach and consistent approach, the whole of the district, not just the inner city, will make a difference.
Yeah, and thank you very much. I think we're hearing, have heard from the presentation as well, just how valuable that partnership between council and our city safe guardians are, to be able to have that well thought out but locally appropriate approach when we do have incidents come up. We now move to Ms Rothwell, followed by Councillor Wang, Councillor Rokawateit, and Her Worship the Mayor.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Again, thank you for the fantastic work you're doing in such a challenging space. Could you provide some more details around the planned surveillance for rural areas? For example, when you do have more city guardians available, will they patrol as far as, say, the Hamarana Reserve?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, we will, and we currently are we only have a couple of vehicles on at the moment, but in one of those areas that we are covering off is Hamarana.
And through you, Madam Chair, from the police, we tasked the community patrollers, and they do Hamarana, Nongataha and other areas, so they get briefings from police on what the current trends are as well.
Excellent, thank you.
Councillor Wang.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, really, thank you so much for that presentation, and really appreciated that video clip as well to show the collaboration between the organisations resulting in those outcomes. Ms Rothwell asked one of my questions because it has been a concern in, I think, some of the rural villages as well of street races and some antisocial behaviour going on there, so that's great to see that that's being monitored as well. Going back to our long-term plan submissions on community safety, I noted that some of the submissions talked about community patrol and the importance of community patrol to support, I guess, this movement in community safety. And so it's really great to see the partnership between police, our Safe City Guardians, the CCTV and the neighbourhood support. But how does the community patrol work with this, or is there any kind of any investigation into looking at how that could be better incorporated?
And through you, Madam Chair, CPNZ run community patrols nationally now, so it's not a local body as it used to be. But Dave, who's here, so they get tasked by us, so from council issues as well. So the Hamarana Reserve, I live out there, so I'm kind of personally affected by the way they behave. So, but yeah, there's a whole lot of number of things that are brought through the collaboration that come into the mix, and then we're tasking accordingly from each work group. So they're really keen to be involved. They're growing their numbers as well through CPNZ, and they are going to spread across the whole Rotorua and out to Repayment way, my understanding, once they get some numbers.
Thank you. And next kind of little question was, there's a big focus on mental health and wellbeing now, and I hope that the staff working in these areas, dealing with these stressful situations, do have their mental health and wellbeing supported as well?
Yeah, absolutely. That's hugely important for us. Without our staff, our good, keen staff, we couldn't do what we have to do going forward. This organisation definitely provides services such as our employee assistance program for staff. They do come across traumatic things from time to time, and so we certainly do all we can to keep in touch with them and make sure that our staff are fit and well.
Thank you, Councillor Wang. Councillor Rokawateit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just sitting here thinking, wouldn't it be great if everybody just acted normally and with consideration, and we wouldn't have to have these plans? But however, look, I do have two questions. It is becoming warmer, and I live on the periphery of Quito Park, also 2 doors down from a big transitional housing accommodation venue or location. I've noticed people gravitating now towards Quito Park again, some of them with their trolleys. And so is anything going to happen there? Because since we've had COVID and lockdown, that was all cleared away. And is that going to be monitored? So that's one of my questions. And the second question, or the second issue that I would like to raise with you is, I've seen intolerance rising by some of our good citizens who do not like to see people walking up and down who are obviously homeless or, in transitional housing, and they are the ones that are becoming quite abusive. I'm talking about our good citizens, the upright citizens, who do not like to think that within our town we've got a housing situation, and now we're seeing people who are in transitional housing walking up and down, and they are the ones that I have seen and heard getting abused. So I'm just asking, have you noticed that yourselves? Is it coming to your attention? Because we always tend to look at the vulnerable ones as being the ones who are being abusive to our good citizens, and I'm seeing a lot coming the other way now, and I just wondered if you've noticed that. Thank you.
Through yourself, Madam Chair. The first part of the question, so Kuiro Park, yes, the teams, we have noticed more movement around the inner city, parts of the inner city, including things like shopping trolleys and movement of shopping trolleys all over the place. We are consistently working with those groups of people as we come across them. We're also mindful that they're not breaking any rules as such by being in those spaces, but if we consider that they don't have any good shelter over them, we will definitely join dots in regards to passing on appropriate information and contact numbers for them to approach those other groups, or we will let the other community groups know about where people are in relation to the inner city area as well.
And Madam Chair, through the second question, police probably haven't seen an increase in reported offending, but we've heard things, so we are working with a number of groups around just giving them advice about how to deal with some of those perceptions that they see, and instead of having this interaction that's not actually required. And so it's more that lower level softly approach which is required.
So if I could, through the chair, and the important thing about the community safety plan is that Rotorua should be a safe place for all, so it shouldn't be a division on, what you look like, where you live, those type of things. So that's what this approach is about. It's making it safe for everybody, and having those public spaces that everyone is free to use and enjoy.
Thank you, Craig. Very good reminder. Your Worship, the Mayor.
It's fantastic to see the whole team here and to see that it's growing, and thanks for sharing the safety plan and actually seeing results is very reassuring for us as elected members. When we voted to increase it, this is what we hope to see. And it's nice that you've come to the table too, together. My issue is about individuals really, and the use of their cell phones and social media sites. So there are some really good little neighbourhood sites actually where people are talking to one another about watch out or look out for this car or have you seen. Are we using that as a medium for spreading it around hotspots and building communities? Because it's not a vendetta site, but I'm finding it really very valuable where I live. Do you do it through neighbourhood support?
There's a couple of probably problematic issues with privacy that especially the police look at with their Facebook pages and Instagram pages, but we do use that to get messaging out, and yes, you're very right that it can be seen as a vendetta page, but they're not. Most of the time we see them are really well worded, thoughtful, great interaction within the public. So I think it's a good way of getting safety messages out. It's just managing some of the content and then what may happen after that.
And the other question I had was about business owners. Are they feeling well supported, and are they also contributing to the intel and the forensic intel that we're building up? Because I remember before 2018, it was seen as our job to respond, or police job to respond, and we said, well, actually, it's everybody. So how's that relationship going?
From a police perspective, we just have engaged neighbourhood support to get all the details of our current business owners, and they're updated because police have had wonderful systems in the past, but that's in the past. So let's get a brand new update of their emails, phone numbers, who actually owns what. So then we have a consistent flow for messaging, very much like they do for the residential areas. That's coming on board. It's just started last week, so watch the space.
Thank you. We have next Councillor Maxwell, followed by Councillor Yates, Councillor Kaifong, and then Mr Waru, and we'll wrap it up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora, Kurt and the team, doing good mahi there. I'm very interested in the joint summer safety program that you mentioned about. So does when the trailer's out there, whichever spot is chosen, does it beam in to not only to council here, but to the police station and the people who are monitoring? Is it just one of the sites that the people are looking at?
Through yourself, Madam Chair. So the trailer in its current state does not have the capabilities in regards to a direct link back to the fishbowl. There's a little bit of work that's happening in that space, and the future for us is that we would or will have at least one trailer that has the ability to fire a link directly back to the fishbowl. So for us, it records, it's utilised as a deterrent.
It's like a deterrent, but it'll have some footage there if ever you need it.
So it does record continuously when it's in place. It's got solar panels, so it's not reliant on having to be plugged into power to generate, to run continuously. The other thing I would just like to mention is the need. We talk about the businesses previously. Safe City Guardian team have a good working relationship with business owners, and the big part in all of this is reminding people to actually report incidents.
Thank you. Councillor Yates.
Kia ora, and through you, Madam Chair. Nei rā te mihi kia koutou katoa. It is really appreciated the work, the extensive work that you and your team do. This question might be for Susan, perhaps, because it is around the CCTV expansion. Kia ora. It's around the CCTV expansion, and I do know that some areas that had been identified in the slide, and you had some priority areas. Not all of the priority areas were identified in the presentation. When will the others come on board? And I'm kind of talking around, Otonga, you've got Kaua Point here that wasn't in the presentation. When might those come on board?
Sure, we've started obviously with Fenton Street. Lake Park development has been through the project. We've got the next three would be Nongataha, and also Lake Road, but it will be dependent on doing the site assessments first, but also the availability of equipment and then funding as well. So councillors may be aware that we have put a funding application through to the Proceeds of Crime, and so we'll be waiting some of the outcome of that as well. There are some challenges with some of these sites, just to mention, in terms of connectivity, but also access, electricity, power, all those sorts of things need to be considered in some of these site assessments, which poses some challenges in some locations.
No, thank you.
Councillor Kaifong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, team. Just a question around what communication are we doing with the public to just remind them that you're actually now patrolling outside wider than just the CBD, so that people that have got some concerns about safety in their homes, some of the suburbs which are being more impacted by some of the transitional housing, that you are actually sort of moving through the area on a regular basis?
Thank you. That's a good question. I think the honest answer to that would be we're just starting to touch on the communications around that. We've just wanted to make sure that we are in a space to deliver on what we're going through and are promising at this point. So there will be a little flag coming up in the Tatou Tatou magazine very shortly, but we will be looking at increasing the visibility and messaging around that to ensure that people make that connection between what we're doing in this space and our need to improve community safety.
Thanks, Kurt. And just one question around dogs. Because we want to try and make our inner city livable and we want apartment buildings there, I take it that the 48 dogs were not dog attacks or biting, it was just simply that people were walking their dogs, so that if we were to make a change, there wouldn't be an increase of bad incidents with dogs.
Correct. Yeah, those incidents typically are, as Richard had touched on earlier, just people coming from other towns that may have a more permissive stance around that type of thing. And it's just generally a reminder, if they are otherwise unaware, that they should not have their dog currently in the CBD.
Just one last question, Madam Chair. You mentioned that the availability of CCT cameras is around availability of the cameras and also costs. Is there an opportunity for private businesses to be linked into the system so that you're actually able to widen the network at least cost?
Sorry for the microphone passing. That's an interesting one that we are just currently developing some what would you call it, some guidelines or decision making around. We do have to be a little careful in that space as far as providing our cameras and services for wider public good. If we get into situations where we start to provide it for individual businesses or organisations, then we sort of end up potentially impinging on other security businesses and commercial competition side of things.
Oh, I was suggesting run the other way, where private business has CCT cameras installed, whether that could be linked into the council so that you've actually widened your network?
Yes, sorry. Yes, potentially, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Chair. I think one of the links that's missing here today is there's a Director of Community Wellbeing position that's currently vacant, and that's sort of the strategic lead in this area. And part of that role really looks into the relationships and those ongoing things to help these guys drive those communications and connections into the community. And that's a role that we're, in amongst us, we're assessing where we go with that role right now. Obviously, with Jocelyn's departure, that was in a work plan that needs to still be continued, but we can't afford to wait. So that's why these are the guys that are working on the ground right now. And the suite that needs to come in that strategic role is very much around the relationships, growing those networks into the community groups that have been mentioned, and also just keeping up that communication. And I think we have dealt with a couple of the larger retailers in town around how we work in that collaborative space. There's been some conversations about sharing information, but you know, those are all things that are being traversed while these guys are in the trenches, so to speak, dealing on the issues.
Thank you, and we certainly appreciate all the work that the team's doing at the moment with an already busy workload on top of them, so thank you. We'll go last question, Mr Waru.
Ka tēnā koe te tia mana o tira tātou katoa, kia ora. Tēnā koutou te kaihui tia ki tēnei hapuri, so thank you for the report. My questions are pretty easy, my one question, but a few comments. Glad to hear the mention of the ngā wātene Māori, because they do provide a little bit of a different angle, I suppose, in terms of community safety, so kai te mea atu. Nā, kia koutou hoki ngā pau o tēnei kaupapa tēnā koutou. But in terms of working with other, to Councillor Kai Fong's point, you know, with my pukaroa hat on, yes, those conversations are happening, so seeing as we can do it. And on that, talking about, has there been any thought around facial recognition technology?
We are looking at the capability of our cameras. Currently, our cameras do have some facial recognition with them, but it's about also working with our operators in terms of how we run the cameras in line with the operating of them, I suppose. So they do have that capability. So if a car or a person comes into a zone where we've got that camera set up, it actually will track that. But once that person goes out of that zone, then it needs to be either picked up by another camera. So that's all part of the site assessment that we need to be doing, but it's also understanding what it is we want those individual cameras to do. Does that make sense? Sorry.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So some of them do,
Yeah,
and now
they
with
do.
masks, that's what I was talking about.
And, the
Makes it a bit
masks are-
easier, eh? Or harder, rather.
Absolutely.
And just another addition to my pātai was the, obviously there's hotspots. Let's go and talking about what Councillor Rotorua Tate was talking about, you know, and, I want to talk about it, and say, oh, henemutu. So that's just an example where we've had a bit of trouble in the car parks of the marae, and I had to, how can I say it without getting myself in trouble? Manaki someone out of a car that was not theirs. And so has there been any thought to paying a bit more attention to certain hotspot areas? Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I saw the diagrams and everything, and it's sort of like you got a track you follow and you do that, but has there been any thought to having a bit more focus on certain areas, especially when things like that are happening?
Through you, Madam Chair. To answer your question, yes, we do. But again, what's required is to report. And unless we collectively know about these hotspots and particular trends, we won't be able to respond accordingly. But we absolutely maintain a good level of flexibility across our teams. And now that we're even more mobile with vehicles, our ability to have a footprint across some of those areas is definitely real.
Okay, so it's basically giving you the heads up from whatever community. Kaupapa, kia ora, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Waru. And just on that, and we'll go to you, Kurt, when you say report, just so the public's very clear, if it's obviously an issue where someone's health or safety is at risk, then we go straight to the police. But can you just elaborate on who the public should report to if they do see that there is an incident that might not quite be there but could be suspicious?
Through you, Madam Chair, probably easiest is to go through police. If it's a real emergency, 111, we always say ring 111. That's easier because you can ring the Rotorua police station number that gets answered in Auckland. And so to me, then you've got the 10-5 system now for anything that's a little bit lower level. You might think, oh, not sure about it. We like to know. It's very much the squeaky wheel, with the oil gets oiled as such. And if you're not reporting it, then we're not sure that what is happening. So, and you can do it online now. You can ring up if you like. So the police system's a bigger beast than it's ever been. And so that way it all comes into Rotorua. It's all tagged and comes in. So we do look at it. We may not respond straight away, but then our community groups that we have, or our prevention teams, we have multiple prevention teams now, they all look into that. And also my role as part of that is retasking our staff to go through some of those areas that has been raised by the council through reporting or when people ring up in general.
And Kurt, I think you had a final comment and then we'll conclude with Her Worship the Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to add on the back of Mr Waru's question about AI or artificial intelligence that definitely we are in the very beginning or starting stages of that path. It is a path that naturally the more cameras that expand into this network, the more we need to have the system work for us. It's just not humanly capable for one person monitoring the cameras to pick up on everything, so the network will need to start to work for us. A key message in that, because I appreciate that can be a little scary for some people, is that everything we do in that space will be definitely in line with the Privacy Commissioner's requirements. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Thank you. Your Worship the Mayor.
Thank you for asking the question to clarify who to call. And for us as elected members, if you get asked things, put them through the customer service centre. Otherwise, no job is driven off that request for service or information. So I'm often asked, there's graffiti in Ranulph Street, what are you going to do about it? I say, ring the customer service desk and they will go out and follow up that job. And it's very important that we do that rather than then go to council offices and say, what are you doing about it? It just delays the whole thing. So that's helpful if the public know that, actually, to get that message out there. That's part of the fishbowl.
Thank you. Yes, and that's part of our request for service as well, that will be followed up. Well, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate you coming to give us an update on the community safety plan. It has been a very topical issue within the community that we've heard loud and clear that they want to feel safe. So it's very reassuring to hear from your team, not only what you're currently doing, but what you're planning to make our community even safer. So thank you very much to our partners at the police. We appreciate your work, and I really want to send a heartfelt thank you to our City Safe Guardians there at the back. We appreciate you so much. To think that there's only 4 of you that have been keeping this district safe, we're very, very grateful, and I know that our community enjoys seeing you out there and the relationships that you build with them as well. So thank you very much for your work. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Thank you. So we will now move to our financial performance for the next 10 months ended 30th of April. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to receive that report. Moved by Councillor Raukawa Tate, seconded by Councillor Kai Fong. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Thank you very much. We now invite Thomas to present to his report. And also just an apology, I appreciate it is very cold in this room. We've had a bit of a heating issue this morning, but hopefully with the doors closed it'll warm up. Over to you, Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, councillors and board members. First of all, my apologies on the heating. We turned the geothermal off last week because we had experienced 2 weeks of summer and the building was getting too hot. Unfortunately, we can't just turn the geothermal back on, so my apologies for the temperature in this room. Yeah, it is my fault, unfortunately. With regards to the financial performance, the result itself is still a fairly good result considering the COVID experiences that we've had. So overall, we are tracking 100,000 better than our operating budget. Within that, we still have the challenges that we talked about before with regards to impacts on our fees and charges as a result of COVID, and an uplift in expenditure in response to our housing challenges. During the month itself, there was about a $500,000 swing in the result that was previously reported, with the majority of that being a result of consultancy and costs associated to housing bids with regards to the CIP funding, working with Kaingaora, costs associated to the Three Waters reform with regards to work that our organisation had to undertake. And unfortunately, they're having to use an increase in consultants to cover staffing. And that is a result of the extra demands that we're facing. And as we talked about recently, the incredibly challenging employment environment where, as you are aware, unemployment in New Zealand at the moment is at an all-time low. I think the current rate is equal to that back in 2007 before the GFC. And recruiting and retaining staff, as we've talked about before, is becoming incredibly challenging for pretty much most businesses in New Zealand. And like them, we are also facing those challenges. In addition, there was just a bit of further expenditure coming through with regards to the closing out of the community resilience funding. That was the $1 million of funding that was put in place in the previous annual plan. And there was just some payments falling out of that to community organisations that fell into this financial year. But overall, still 100,000 better than budget. When you look at it again from an activity perspective, the roading one itself is just a timing issue. The district development and regulatory is really the activity that is experiencing the parking revenue challenges, but also some of our fees and charges that are also impacted by the COVID lockdown, with all the other activities being either on track or sitting favourably against their budgets. From a capital works perspective, it was a busy month, so not quite achieving budget, but the budget does reflect that there's a couple of projects that are lagging behind. So obviously with a period of lockdown and some of the challenges in Shimpak, there was a bit of a reduced expenditure there as that ramps back up, but all other projects are progressing well, and in particular the renewal program of our infrastructure is well underway and kicking off in earnest as the weather gets warmer and a lot of that work can take place. Now I just want to spend a bit of time on the Infracore debt repayment that we had in the report. So unfortunately Matthew Scott isn't able to be here with us, but just wanted to touch on some of the discussions that we've been having with Infracore over the period. So just a reminder, Infracore itself was formed in July 2015. It was formed with I think about $4 to $5 million worth of assets and about $1 million to $1.5 million of debt. In its early years it had some challenges, it had some operating challenges and generated a number of deficits, as well as that it had a challenge of replacing some of its older and ageing equipment. And you'll recall last year we did do a capital injection to help them lift their and improve their capital equipment. What's been really pleasing though is that since 2019 the company has actually generated really good financial results. The 2020 result itself was about $870,000 surplus, and this year's draft results, and I won't try and steal their thunder, is looking at about 150 I think to 170 as well. So over the last 2 years generating $1 million worth of surpluses. But one of the challenges for the organisation, and sorry, that is really off the back of the work that Matthew Scott in particular, supported by his CFO Emma Murray, have really driven in a business optimisation program that has really transformed the way that business is operating. And I think recently as well they've undertaken a change in their senior leadership as well. You may have questions on that. I know that Emma will be presenting after me, and I would encourage you to direct questions on that one there. But I think off the back of that work, the company really is transitioning. And so part of the discussions that we've been having with Matt and the board is around obviously how to get that debt down. And so we did provide them with an incentive with regards to encouraging them to pay down as much debt as feasibly possible without constraining themselves, and still allowing them to set themselves up for the future. So we came to an agreement whereby for every dollar debt that they retired, council would match that dollar, and that therefore would pull their debt down to, for them, a more sustainable level with regards to where they wish to go into the future and help it grow. And so just wanted to provide you with transparency therefore on the arrangements that we've put in place and the reasons why we're doing that. So the likelihood is that it is anticipated that they're planning on paying about $900,000 of debt down. They've paid $365 so far in the last 3 months, and obviously planning to pay the balance off in regular instalments. It'll be interesting to see obviously as to how COVID and the lockdowns and a few things will impact that. But as a result, what we do anticipate is for the company itself to retire $900,000 worth of debt, and for council to match that and therefore absorb into our debt profile and a matching $900,000. And that will be reflected in our financial result. Now, to put that into context of what that means, I just thought I'd bore you all a little with regards to debt. So I'm not sure whether you've all seen what's probably happened in the last month, but probably in the last week with regards to interest rates and OCR increasing. And it's a fairly interesting time in the Treasury markets with regards to what's happening with financing. So we've had probably 14 years of declining interest rates. If you could probably recall back before the GFC, the average interest rate was about 6%. And that was considered the norm. And since then, it's done nothing but decline up until probably a few months ago before the recent COVID for us, where they were probably considered at historical lows. The OCR was at, I think, 0.25%, and money was incredibly cheap. And you've probably seen that helping fuel the housing market. Along comes another lockdown, along comes probably incredibly high inflation, and what we have seen over the space of a month is interest rates climb quite dramatically. So a month ago, council could borrow at 2 years at 1.25%. Today, it is now nearly 2.5%. A month ago, we could borrow 10 years at, I think, 2.5, 2.6. Now it is 3.3, 3.4. And it is anticipated that over the next year, they will increase, and probably a further 2% on the numbers that we've talked about again. So what does that mean for us? Well, council itself currently holds about 256 million of external debt. That is matched off by also having about $21 million of cash on hand. Of that 256 million, 240 relates to council itself as the parent, and the other 16 relates to our CCOs, with the majority of that being tied to the airport, and 2.8 million obviously being tied to Infracore. Itself is, at the moment, with regards to all the debt that we hold, and we hold all that debt on behalf of our CCOs as well. The average cost of those borrowings is 2.69%, so that's the lowest it's probably ever been, and it's probably not going to get any lower now. And so what you can see on the bottom right there is the spread of how we actually structure our borrowings. So over the last 5 to 6 years, we've moved the council from having the majority of its debt maturing into a 4-year window to now maturing over a 10-year window. And you'll see that while it is spread evenly, there is still a significant portion that has been pushed out into the 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And the reason for that was that at the time we were acquiring that new debt, those 10-year rates were incredibly cheap, and so therefore structuring our borrowings in a way to maximise that. So for us, it'll be interesting with regards to where interest rates go, but because of the way that we have structured our debt, with the majority of it being fixed and being spread over such a long period of time, that as interest rates increase for us, the overall repricing risk for us has been mitigated by the way that we have structured our borrowings. And so while I do anticipate an increase in our average cost of borrowings, it will take some time for that to be have any significant impact on us. In particular, within our LTP that we just adopted a few months ago, no, but more than that now, we had planned for interest rates increase as well, and so the increases that we're seeing at the moment are fairly in line with those at the moment. They've just come a little bit earlier than expected. But of course, no one has a crystal ball, and so we don't really know where these things will go. Just thought I'd give you a little bit of an insight into how we do that. And so with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. With any questions? Mr. Waru, followed by Councillor McPherson.
Tēnā koe te tiamana. Kia ora, Thomas. Tēnā koe. Just a quick question around the debt you've just been talking about and the plan. What impact does or could the Three Waters kaupapa have on that, if any?
If any, it would obviously transition the portion of debt that relates to our infrastructure to the new entity. I'm not sure of the mechanics of how that would actually work, but our modelling would indicate that approximately, I think, $140 to $150 million would transition across with approximately probably 800 to 900 million of assets. Yep.
Kapai, nice to know. Thank you.
Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, it's an intriguing arrangement that you've set up with regard to Infracore's debt, matching dollar for dollar. How does it actually work, and how does it impact our bottom line as a council?
So how it impacts our bottom line is that we obviously absorb the matching into our debt profile and assign that across the cost of our activities. And it's the portion of debt that we transition back to us is reflected through our financial statements at the end of the year.
So it's added to our debt?
It's already in there. It's just, yes, internally assigned back to us. Yes.
Thanks for that clarification. Through you, Chair, one other question. Will you use the same strategy to retire the airport debt?
No, the airport is quite different in that we have a funding agreement in place with them and an agreed debt repayment profile. And so our funding is designed in such a way that they can retire debt in an agreed manner. And as that debt reduces, therefore the level of funding that is required from council will also reduce. So we have a strategy in place with them that has now been in place since 2015 as well. And you may recall that initially the airport took on 18.5 million of debt, has paid that down to about 14 million, as you can see. Was scheduled to pay a little bit more down recently as well, but unfortunately COVID and the impact on their financials got in the way. But they are scheduled to commence repayments again this fiscal year in line with the agreement.
Thank you. And finally, just a comment, I really appreciate the way that you've stretched out the over 10 years, the period of repayment, because we're going to have a massive surge in interest rates. And the cost of borrowing from LGFA is going to rise quite steeply. So stretching it out like this, I think, is a very clever strategy. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm certainly sure the ratepayers would appreciate that you've mitigated that risk there with the long-term interest rates. We'll go to Councillor Raikoa and Councillor Kaifong.
Thank you. It's just in relation to the Infracore, the 900,000. Thomas, is there some haste in requiring them to repay back as much as they can by the end of the year?
No, not real haste. There's probably an agreement between us that I think they would like to see the debt retired quicker, because obviously that frees up more cash flow for them to do the things that they wish to do. But they do obviously have to manage that within their operational cash flows. So they have a strategy in place. They're adhering to that. It is planned a further, I think, 550,000 for the remainder of the year. Unfortunately, that all is dependent on obviously how bad COVID has hit their operations recently, but I'm sure Emma will be able to give you some insights as to how that's looking at the moment.
Thank you.
Councillor Kaifong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thomas, in the report you've mentioned, and the written report and your verbal report, the pressure on reduced fees and charges, and also the fact that we've got demands on budgets to achieve our priorities. So what are our strategies to try and address those shortfalls? Is it going to be cutbacks? Is it more borrowings? Or how do we get more income to fill that gap?
At the moment, at the time when the majority of that revenue was hit, there was also a reduction in operating expenditure because we were in lockdown. So that has offset the majority of it. The unknown is really in particular around parking revenues as to what will happen going forward and what will the impact of that be going forward and what do we need to do to respond. So it's just at the moment probably a little bit more of a watching brief, in particular for us. What happens to Auckland? Will they be allowed out? Will they start turning up? And will we see an increase in tourism and business activity as a result? I think for us, strategically, I think the biggest challenge, in my view, that this organisation will face fairly shortly is probably staffing and recruiting, and the challenges of retaining, attracting staff, and our ability, therefore, to deliver against all of our strategic priorities.
Thank you.
There appear to be no other questions. I did just have one quick question for you, and actually on the staff vacancies. And I note in the report on page 14, staff vacancies across the organisation resulted in savings of 344,000. Was that just for the last 3 months?
Correct.
Okay, and is it anticipated that those staff vacancies will be filled hopefully in the next 3 months? And I just ask that because we already are asking of our staff a significant amount of work. They're working harder than they've ever had to on less time and resources, you could argue sometimes. So I'm just mindful that while it is great that we could have some savings, it may not be sustainable in the long term.
Correct. We are busy trying to recruit. It is hoped that we get back to the full complement that we need. But as I said before, that will be a challenge for us going forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, Mr. Hurd, last question from you and welcome.
Yeah, just following up, thank you, and apologies for lateness. Just following up on the Infracore question, I understand that there's absolutely no difference to our total debt, and so the ratepayers aren't being charged anymore because of that forgiveness totally, and understand also the reasons why we're doing it. But given that Infracore is a CCO, and as I understand it, is in the marketplace tendering outside for work, are we not giving them a bit of an unfair advantage over the private sector by doing this?
I don't think it's material enough for that. I would just recommend that they are part of us, and as the parent of that group entity, it's in our best interest to ensure that they are successful and fit for purpose for the future. So I hear what you say, Mr. Hurd, but yeah.
Chair, could I just say also, Infracore is actually a social enterprise too. It's not just the bottom line, it has a social aspect to it, and therein lies a difference.
Yeah, thank you. And on that note, well, thank you, Thomas, and thank you, Carlo. And we'll actually shift straight forward into Infracore while we've got Emma here, if you don't mind. So we'll go to page 24 on our agenda, and I'd like to introduce and welcome Emma Murray to the table. And this is the operational update from Infracore. So I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the motion that the report operational update for Council from Infracore Limited be received. Moved by Ms Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Yates. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kumar. Well, we'll hand over to you, Emma, to introduce your team. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So tēnā koutou katoa, I whānau mai ahau I Ingarangi, Engari I tipu ake ahau I Tauranga. Kei Rotorua tōku kāinga. Kei Infracore ahau e mahi ana. Ko tāku tūranga I reira, te āpiha mātāmua putea. Ko Murray tōku whānau, ko Emma tōku ingoa. Tēnā koutou katoa.
Kia ora.
Ooh, that's over? No, it's an absolute privilege to be here today on behalf of Infracore. My name's Emma Murray and I am the CFO. I'm joined here today, our chair is also an apology. So I'm joined here today by Viv Scott and Brent Wibley, who are our directors. I might pass over to our directors first just to give a quick overview and then I'll move into our report.
Kia ora everyone, kia ora Chair. Thank you for this opportunity. Personally, from a board perspective, there's a couple of things first up, and Thomas alluded to them as well, and that is the performance of the organisation over the last few years, and that is down to the dedication of the team and what they have done over the last few years in terms of creating systems and structures has just created benefits to our home, the whole community, and especially around that social enterprise element. And yes, Bryce, you're right, we are disadvantaged when we go out into the private sector. So, you know, we have those challenges and they will be ongoing challenges. But at the same time, we appreciate the that contractual commitment that Council has and giving us additional contract work. That is quite critical in terms of our performance and our opportunities to repay some of that debt. Thomas, we were after 2 for 1, but and we did try. And the 1 for 1, what it does do is it allows our organisation to have a stronger balance sheet. It allows our organisation to actually deliver to the community something different. And we need to move that, but we still have that social enterprise space purely in mind. But yeah, from a board perspective, it is really congratulating Matt and Emma and the rest of the team for the awesome work that they have done over the last few years. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Can I just say a few words? Kia ora tātou, ko Vivian tōku ingoa, no relation to Matt Scott, by the way, even though we share the same surname. Brent and I joined the board early in 2019. been, and we've certainly been on a journey. And I just wanted to say a couple of words about the health and safety journey that we've been on. It's been remarkable in my view. The culture change throughout has been tough. It's been hard yakka for everybody. I'm the chair of the Health and Safety Committee, and I've certainly seen a lot of excellent work happening on the ground and boots on the ground. So I've been out there as well, talking to people on site. And I must give credit to the senior leadership team. They're excellent. They're definitely the right people at the right time now. So all credit to them. And we've got the awards coming up, haven't we, Emma? We've been nominated for Health and Safety and Employer of the Year with the Tompkins Wake coming up next month, isn't it? Yep. Yeah. So kia ora, thank you.
Thank you, Brent, and thank you, Viv. Up on the screen, you'll see as well a few images, and this really just reflects the work that we complete at Infracore. These photographs were also taken by an employee, and it's just a reflection of the work that we do in our community, so I just thought I'd share those with you. So the presentation today will just be taking you through our COVID-19 response. We'll be going through some good news stories, things we've achieved over the last 12 months, our business optimisation plan that Thomas alluded to, challenges that we face within our business and where to from here. So our COVID-19 response, all of our staff were supported with 100% wages throughout that small lockdown period. This actually looks quite different in the Infracore business. We have two very separate parts to our business. So we have our Parks and Open Spaces team and our Utilities team, which is our 3 waters or 2 waters response. So our Parks and Open Spaces staff were stood down for majority of that period, and our utility staff worked through. So it does bring challenges having two quite separate operations, but one that we were ready for. So our support staff mobilised from home, and we were able to continue operating, which was fantastic. So we did provide regular updates to our staff. We've been on quite a digital journey, as Brent mentioned. So we're able to actually text all of our staff and give them updates, let them know that they've got important information, and really just keep them up to date so that even at home they knew what Infracore was doing. We also did manager check-ins, so daily for all staff, just to make sure that everybody was fine. So the revenue impact of COVID was around 172k of our fixed maintenance, just as a result of that lockdown period. We had around 90k variable revenue reduction during that period. We had no reduction in our utilities space, so that remained fully operational, and we continued doing work in that space. There was a small timing delay to our project timing and delivery, but one that we believe we will be recovering throughout the coming months. Our vaccination support continues throughout Infracore. We've ran an anonymous survey to gauge our uptake within our business. We support staff to be vaccinated, and we've even partnered with a local Vaughan Road business to have a vaccine drive. So we've seen quite a positive uptake to vaccination rates within Infracore. We continue to make sure that our COVID response and continuity plans are as up to date as we can. It's difficult, as we all know, it's a moving target, so we're doing our best to stay on top of this. Now the fun stuff, our good news stories. We welcomed 3 new board members, so Tupara Morrison, Jeff Rolliston and Ono Mulder joined our board in May 2021. So it's been great to have a full board. It's the first time we've had a full board in a while. So it's fantastic to have a really diverse range of thinking on that board. As Viv said, we are finalists for 2 awards in the upcoming Rotorua Business Awards, so the ACC Workplace Safety and the EMA Employer of the Year. So that really is just, for us, it just shows the hard work by our people, and it's great to be recognised for the work that we do in the community. Contracts have been awarded for both MSD and the Department of Corrections. We've filled a number of positions through those contracts, and they've been extremely positive throughout our business. So it is a real good news story for Infracore. As Thomas said, we've had a really solid FY21 draft result. I say draft because unfortunately the auditors are under a lot of strain at the moment, and that won't be completed until January, February next year. So 870k surplus in FY21 compared to FY20, which was 118k. We continue to strengthen our relationships with iwi, and having Tupara and Jeff on that board has been fantastic for those relationships for us. We're looking at ways to continue that partnership. Our engagement survey, we've seen improvements across the board from our staff. So not only are we seeing that our staff are more engaged, our management teams are being recognised for the hard work that they're doing within their teams as well. And Infracore is moving to be an organisation where people are really happy to work, and that we're working really hard in that space. And we currently have a number of staff completing te reo qualifications, which is fantastic, both through the Rotorua Lakes Council and through Toi Oho Mai, which, it's a real push in our business, and it's something that we're stepping through. Per our statement of intent, we are really trying in this space. We achieved ISO 9001 accreditation early in this financial year, so it really just demonstrates the importance that we place on quality, quality service, quality staff, and just quality in everything that Infracore does. So a lot of work went into that accreditation process. Hats off to Shelley Woyson, who is part of our leadership team. A lot of work went in to get that accreditation, and it's a great success for Infracore. We also have a number of staff undertaking formal apprenticeships and postgraduate qualifications. We have somebody in our finance team completed their chartered accountancy, and we also have a number of the water reticulation and horticulture apprentices coming through. So our business optimisation plan is really the core of our Infracore business. It's something that lives and breathes and changes as our business changes. So Kotahi Infracore is, as Thomas said, a change in our leadership team. So basically our executive leadership team has been streamlined to ensure that we are one Infracore. We're looking at our businesses as units rather than looking at them as those two separate parks and open spaces and utilities. We're really looking at the business as a whole, and as such, David Rose is our general manager that sits across both of those business units now. What this means is that we can look at skills in our business and use those skills where they are needed, not necessarily which business unit they sit in. So it's a real change in the way that Infracore is operating. But it's a really positive change, and it's one that we will see the benefits as we move through the financial year. So Dave Rose was appointed early this month, so he's in his first few months of streamlining, so we will see those changes come through. Other completed initiatives include our support centre review. Again, this is something that we use our dispatch team within Infracore to ensure that the right people, the right equipment and the right teams are being sent to jobs. So this means that we can have a fast turnaround on jobs and make sure that the community is safe. Our continual systems optimisation, we're on a real digital journey. We're almost paperless. We're getting to the point now where we're also able to send a lot of the information from our system to council to ensure that the right information is shared across. So we're always pushing in this space to make sure that we can be as paperless as we possibly can. We've seen quite a bit of plant and equipment investment over the period, as well as obviously resource utilisation reviews, making sure that that data that we're now gathering that we're using and making sure we can optimise our business. We've had a number of changes in internal processes, including our tendering review process, so making sure that the right people in the business are reviewing those documents before they go out. We've partnered with people here to ensure that we're doing the right thing as a company. And we still continue our Why Don't We Just program. So this is a great program for any staff member to put forward an idea. Each idea is given to the executive leadership team and they're replied to personally. So every single person that puts forward an idea, we make sure that we reply and we take that idea on board. So we do report this back to the business as well so they know that that program is in place. Challenges within Infracore. So as Thomas said, turnover is really impacting our business as well. So as a diverse business, we have a number of skill sets that we need. We have a number of teams that we need to fill, and we're finding the labour constraints extremely challenging. We also have a number of vacancies. I think the number's about 17 vacancies at the moment, and that's from our City Clean team right through to our HR team. So we have a number of vacant positions. It's a challenging time, and as well, inflation and our union pressure. We're a highly unionised business, and it's just ensuring that we are able to remain competitive in that market. COVID-19, we don't know what the future really looks like. Will there be another lockdown? We're not sure. We do know that we're ready for any future lockdowns, but the timing of projects and the revenue implications has had an impact on Q1. We're working together as a leadership team to ensure that this is mitigated as best as we can. The Three Waters reform has sort of been touched on, so this does have an impact on Infracore as well. Part of our business is obviously looking at and looking after the Council Three Waters assets, but we are partnering with Council through this process and ensuring that we're aligned with the infrastructure team. So FY22 and beyond, so as a board and as a leadership team, we're looking at the Three Waters impact, and we'll be working on that during our strategy session later this month. Our development of an employment retention strategy, so how do we attract and retain talent in the region? We have a real opportunity to harness and develop skills within our business. So how can we create career pathways for our rangatahi and our community? It's something that we do touch on, but it's something that we really could grow in this space. We'll continue to generate internal initiatives. We'll keep using that business optimisation plan to make sure that Infracore is as efficient as we can be. We'll be continuing growing relationships with Te Arawa and partnering where we can with local iwi entities. As Viv said, health and safety has moved a long way over the last few years, but it continues to be the most important thing within Infracore, getting people home safe to their families. And I believe that's the end of my presentation, so any questions? Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We'll start with Councillor Kaifong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not really a question, but I wondered if I could just have the opportunity to make a few comments. Firstly, Emma, thank you very much for that presentation. That was a very comprehensive overview of all the activities at Infracore. Lovely to see you, Viv, and Brett, nice to see the board attending at an operations and monitoring meeting, because it's nice to just put a face to the board, and nice for you to turn up at this meeting today. I think that the strength of the leadership team with Matt and with John McRae at the board has shown that Infracore has been able to achieve some great things. I think that's a very excellent result in terms of the financial performance, but also in terms of that social performance as well. So I don't think it's reported as much in terms of the statistics on the page on the graphs, but it's nice to see that social enterprise side still standing out there, and that we're able to compete on a commercial basis, even though we've got that that social enterprise arm as well. And good to see that we're actually winning work in Tauranga. I think that's excellent as well. So I think the general public see Infracore because you have all those beautiful gardens, and I think we get a lot of comments as councillors about how beautiful our city looks. The ISO accreditation, I think, is also a great achievement for the team. So can I just simply say thank you for the work that you've been doing. pass on my thanks to the rest of the team, and I've looked forward to, I've enjoyed working with you over the past year, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Kaifong, who of course is the lead for economic development and works very closely with all three of our CCOs. Thank you. Your Worship, the Mayor.
I completely agree with Councillor Kaifong, and congratulations for coming. It's nice for us to see the faces of different directors too. Well done with your reo, Emma. And it was a very full report. My concern, and I think it might be a bit of an issue we've got to look at right across the district, is about our rangatahi, and it was great to see you have a focus in there. And my concern is that we are seeing them drop off from school, and this is part of the COVID reaction, and them just wondering about their future. So are you doing a push into the schools? Because I love your apprenticeship program. I'm very concerned about the NEET, the Not in Employment Education and Tertiary Sector. So there's some gold in there for us to awhi through to CCOs like Infracore.
Yeah, look, I think that will be a real feature in our employee retention and recruitment processes. It is something really important that we do need to be stepping into the schools and stepping into that space. We're quite unique within Infracore that we do have such a diverse range of business operations. You don't necessarily need to know where you want to work. If we bring through our rangatahi, they could try a lot of different areas out before they decide, obviously on that pathway. So it will be a feature within our retention and recruitment processes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rokawate, followed by Councillor McPherson.
Thank you. I'm not overly heartened to hear you say it should be recruitment of our rangatahi should be a feature. It should have already been a feature. And every time we get a new CEO, you know, here we go again. So really, our rangatahi should have been given consideration some time ago. Your contracts with MSD and corrections, and I'm pleased to see, are they 3 yearly contracts? Because I'd hate to think that their normal is usually their normal is an annual, but I'd like to think it's at least 3 years.
I believe these are annual, but they're based on delivery. So it's based on the number of people that we're bringing through our business. So it is rewarded based on that basis.
And can I just ask, follow that up? Did you have to recruit additional? I mean, I think I heard you say that you had to recruit for those staff for those contracts.
Sorry, what was?
I mean, did you have to recruit additional staff to undertake the work for those contracts?
We haven't, no. So
right.
It's all been delivered in-house.
Fine, thank you. I just want to hope that you will give consideration to targeting our young people in this city, because if you're a social enterprise, then that is definitely part of your core business.
Sorry, I will just add to that. So last year was our first year as Infracore that we did an internship program. So we have got small glimpses within our business. It is just something that I believe that we can do more of. So it's not that rangatahi don't feature in our business. It is just something that we need to be pushing more, I believe, and bringing young people through our operations also requires, you know, the right health and safety practices for young people as well, and for our current staff, you know, mentoring and coaching, and it's gearing our business ready for that space as well. Thank you.
Can I just add, part of that in terms of the 1 year and the 3 year plan as well is that MSD and Department of Corrections don't have the systems in place, and actually Infracore and other businesses in Rotorua actually have been driving that. And we've actually been pushing it for even more input from them. And we've actually, I think we're the drivers of it rather than them coming to us. Also in terms of employment of you know, local people, that was helped also with that original lockdown period as well, and some of the government initiatives, and that created programs and that allowed some of those additional programs to come in. So in terms of staff, locals are always a prime focus. And actually, because part of that as well is all the money that comes into Infracore stays within Rotorua as well, and as opposed to some of our other private partners. So it is definitely a focus. It's very hard to get into the gateway. The schools actually also are another area that they need to step up as well. There is engagement with Infracore and the schools, but we need to work with schools to push that a little bit more. And once again, I'm talking from a business perspective as well. We're doing that ourselves in a different business space. And it's a complete new program change that we've got to do. And that will help with the change in the senior team.
Thank you. Councillor McPherson.
Chair, thank you, Chair. Through you. First a suggestion and then some other comments. The first suggestion is on page 33, you've got a financial performance table. It would have been helpful to me if the core operations had been broken down into the distinct areas of core operations, so I could see income and expenditure. Then I could see your performance at a glance. That's one suggestion. The same thing applies to the operating expenditure. If that could be disaggregated a bit, that would have been helpful. But apart from that, the strong impression I've gained, and I endorse many of the comments that have been made by colleagues. You've got a process of ongoing reform to both governance and management and to organisational development that shines through. It's becoming a major theme in the reports. So congratulations for that. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the organisational coherence, the sheer coherence between different levels and different aspects of your structures. You've developed a culture of continuous improvement, and that's going to provide enormous benefits to residents and ratepayers in the future. So, compliments to expert leadership at all levels. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I did just double check with our Chief Executive just around the reporting of financials, and what we get back from them is actually what we've asked them to report on. So, well, I appreciate that sometimes councillors may want to know a little bit more. It may just be inappropriate for us to request too much detail from the operational side, but we appreciate the information that you do give us. And we were aware across the country the workload that our auditors are under too. So understand that there's a bit of a delay on the audited results back too. Were there any other questions? Yes, Mr. Waru.
Tēnā koe te tiamana o tira kia, tēnā koutou. Tuatahi akira, kai te mihi kia koe, Emma. Nice to put a face to the name. I'm the Rawiri there, help write this, the statement of intent, because I got a call from Uncle Jeff. Come and help, nā reira kai te mihi atu, kia koe I tō kaha ki te kōrero Māori. Hope you continue and learn more. I just wanted to bring up that I attended a few functions at the Infracore there, and Te Tune Brownie came in and cut up the meat, and the wairua amongst the staff was awesome. Just wanted to put that there. In terms of the rangatai thing, it was quite hard. Casey and a few of my nephews there from Ngāpuna. Kia ora, uncle. Oh, geez. So it was really good, and they're there on time because they only live around the corner, so that was even better. But no, I just wanted to compliment, the new direction, and perhaps I think, just touching on what Councillor Rukawa Tate was talking about, maybe it's not enough just to think around or have a lot of huis without the dois in terms of rangatahi, but maybe make that a priority, because in the end of the day, they're going to be the guts of the business moving forward. And I think a lot of organisations are looking like that now at the moment. Don't know what the deal is with the schools, but I'm sure you can sort that out. I just wanted to ask, has the business, you've done some changes around the structure and all that. Have you looked at alternative ways of, utilising the skills within the organisation to get more revenue in? Are there other pathways that have been explored?
Yeah, thank you. So part of this change within our structure is to ensure that we are looking at the skills of our business and using those skills where they are most needed. So we're always looking at further revenue opportunities for Infracore. And as the report said, we've picked up work in Tauranga, and we always look for other spaces that we can develop in. the skills piece is an interesting legacy of Infracore. So our collective agreements are structured in a way that they are broken down by department, essentially. But within those departments, there are a lot of crossover. So we really want to harness those skills within our people and ensure that those skills are being used in the right places.
Oh, okay. Well, just to add to that, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, you know, just for example, what I meant was, you know, I sit on a few other trusts and organisations, and there was a few things like, for instance, Infracore were able to provide plants and the planting, but they weren't able to do the softscaping and stuff like that for a big job. Something for you to think about, because then you would have got the whole lot. You know what I mean? And more money coming in, more investment in the community, and so on and so forth. So, kia ora. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do recognise those gaps in some of our skill areas. It's something that we will be working on over the coming months and over the coming year, really. It's not something that we can, you know, overnight step into that space, and it's not something that we'd be willing to take that risk on. But it is something that we are developing and ensuring that we are ready to take on those big jobs and have the right skills and the right people in place as well. So, yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. There appear to be no other questions, so we'll wrap that up there. But just a huge thank you to Emma, Vivian and Brent as well. We really appreciate you coming here to present to us and sharing the great news stories. And can I just also thank you on what you're doing around human resources as well. It was just amazing to read through our agenda, the large and extensive list of qualifications, training and development that you're providing to the employees there. So I'm very proud that you guys are a finalist for Employer of the Year in Health and Safety, and keep doing awesome work. Thank you. Well, we'll break now. We'll take 15 minutes to give you a good enough break to warm up a bit and grab a drink. So how about we return at 11:45? As we are at 11:45, and we'll go to our operational update from Reg. We're on page 37. You have a question, Mr. Waru?
Oh, not a question, just an update. Miss Bray had to shoot off work. She got called into work.
Oh, okay, that's fine. We'll note her apologies for early departure now. Thank you. So I would need a mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Kai Fong, seconded by Her Worship the Mayor, that the report operational update for Council from Rotorua Economic Development Limited be received. I put that to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you. We hand over to Andrew to overview his presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Hope everyone's having a good day so far. I will just firstly give apologies from my chair. He was otherwise engaged this morning and so couldn't be here, but I know he really wanted to be, so apologies there. Similar to Infracore, also just note that our financial and non-financial performance remains in draft and unaudited. I think the last update I had was our audit is now pushed out to late February, but we will be proceeding to arrange our AGM, and you will obviously get an invite to that shortly. So that'll provide an opportunity to discuss some of the performance in a bit more detail. We've put some, as we're a little bit prone to do, we've got some different images this time. This was, and they're kind of scattered through the presentation. They were from some work that was completed through the last year. We were really looking to try and showcase some of our business events assets. So it's a range of, accommodation, hospitality, and so forth. And so that's, as we'll allude to, that's certainly been one area where we've been pushing really hard, post this sort of COVID environment. Starting with the kind of the financial performance, it has been a pretty tough year, I guess, overall. We certainly had some pretty significant holes in terms of our income, both from, our trading revenue from our eyesight operations, but also in terms of where we've typically partnered with industry and we've joint funded things. Industry just quite simply hasn't been in a position to be able to contribute. The good news was that we actually finished slightly ahead of where we thought we would at the year end. Very, very small kind of net profit, which certainly sort of turned around what was, I think, sort of a smaller loss in the previous financial year. That's really hard to see, but I know this is in your pack. Just wanted to touch really quickly in terms of some of those non-financial measures. There were some that, as we went through a reorganisation through about sort of that December period for RED, we wrote back to Council and indicated that there were some measures that were no longer relevant in terms of the direction we were taking as an organisation, and so those were withdrawn. But overall, performance against those targets, the other targets, has continued to be really strong. I mentioned the business event space, and you can kind of see there the guys did a really, really great job under what has been quite trying conditions, and managed to come in ahead of what the target was for the year in terms of conferences landed year in one. I will touch on that kind of, I know because I listened obviously in the previous presentation around the rangatahi and our youth. Obviously we didn't run a summer intern program. We were in the middle of a change process, so that would have been really challenging. But our eyesight operations do continue to make positions available through that summer period for students in particular. We were certainly giving them, upskilling them and looking to give them work experience. On the tail end of the measures there's a couple that unfortunately we've had MB and have just withdrawn the measures, and so it's been really challenging for us to be able to provide an updated kind of set of performance there. They simply just stopped reporting on it, and that's in that kind of tourism expenditure space. So we were on track, interestingly, but again, it's it's going to be one of those things that we take a lot of interest in over the next sort of couple of years as that sector starts to bounce back.
Touching on some key highlights, and so obviously thinking about the last sort of 12 months, there's been a lot going on, but you know, some of the things when I kind of went and had a quick chat with the team, when they cast their minds back, that they were certainly really proud of, was you know, beginning to see the commercial you know, opportunities start to be realised up in the Tawa car park up Tarawera Road there. Similarly, when we think about Te Tokarangi, we've had some really good engagement with you know, with some potential operators to go into a revised visitor centre complex there. So we're looking forward to, you know, being in a position hopefully to confirm who those operators are and how that precinct will work into the future. The Warariki Film Studio has been one that's sort of gone from strength to strength. Really fantastic. They were able to host Minister Nash there yesterday and talk about what their aspirations are for further growth and expansion in that sector. Certainly it's one of those areas where we've got, you know, a really great talent pool already locally, and there's certainly, you know, enormous potential for that sector to grow and really contribute to our economy over, you know, over the coming years. You've obviously heard from us a couple of times over the last sort of 6 months. We've talked about the changing role of RED, in particular us taking more of a focus in terms of the inner city and looking at how we actually catalyse and facilitate some what we've called transformational placemaking projects, but really at its core is about encouraging inner city living. And so I know we've got a presentation at the next SPNF. We'll be giving you an update in terms of how that work is proceeding. The Destination Management Plan was a really huge piece of work over the last sort of 12 months, and we had a lot of engagement with a lot of people over quite an extended period of time. You know, and I think full credit to the, you know, particularly the kind of the tourism sector who have been doing it really tough. They were really engaged in that process, and I know we're looking forward to presenting that to you, I think, at the next SPNF also. We took the time to run and develop what we've called the Rotorua Proud campaign. So if you haven't seen that, I'm sure you will have seen some bus backs with, you know, some locals who volunteered, you know, which is obviously a bit daunting at times, to tell their stories. And we've had, you know, a huge response to that when we looked at the metrics in terms of the number of engagements around the country. Really, it was all about trying to kind of make sure that people are kind of focusing on some of the incredible people that live here, their stories, you know, why they choose to live here, and you know, trying to inject a bit of positivity in terms of a year that has been a bit tough. From a capability building and product development, really proud of my team in this space. They've worked tirelessly in terms of looking at, you know, wherever there's a need, they've developed something on an ongoing basis that's ranged from PR workshops through to helping restaurants in terms of their social media expertise, making sure they've actually got simple things like they've got really great shots of their food if they're trying to market it. And so the team has just, you know, been incredible in terms of how they've gone about that. We obviously did go through an organisational realignment. It was really about making sure that we're really focused. Alongside that, we've done a lot of work in terms of making sure that our culture is fit for purpose, and you know, really proud to say that, you know, pride of place is really central to everyone who works for us now. And I think finally the move down to the Fenton Street I site has allowed us not only to consolidate some of our operational expenditure, we're all in one site now, is probably the bigger benefit. And so it's allowed us to start to recognise the skills we've got across our organisation and how do we deploy those a little bit more efficiently and effectively to the tasks at hand. I think the final thing that was just interesting to kind of touch on, obviously, COVID has kind of hung over us over the last 18 months, is just to kind of touch on some of the initiatives that we have actually, you know, rolled out over that period. We've worked really hard in terms of trying to make sure we've got some better forward-looking data and insights for the industry, and I know that that's been really central to us really boosting the communications that come out of our office. You know, for those of you who are on and I know that there are some councillors who receive the weekly updates that come out from our office that talk about what we're seeing in terms of forward-looking accommodation booking data, for example, has been really well received. We've also, I know the team have, worked really hard to make sure that we're providing opportunities for some of those businesses that, that have been doing it tough, that they're getting together, they're talking to one another, they're connecting. It's all about looking out for one another and making sure that actually from a mental health perspective that, we're trying to do everything we can to keep people in a good sort of headspace. From a marketing campaign perspective, look, it's been a really busy year from a domestic campaign. Everyone is out there fighting for the same visitors, and there is a lot going on. Typically, we would have probably only run, a couple of major campaigns a year. This year, over the last 12 months, the team, I think, have run something like 6 different campaigns. It's always on. They're quite targeted, so we're heavily oriented in terms of the digital. The ability to switch things on and off. I mean, the last lockdown, we had to pause everything, but the ability for us to just gear back up and turn it back on really quickly is something that a new skill, I guess, we've developed through that period. We've also tirelessly worked on different scenarios. I think every time we get another lockdown or a new model in terms of alert level changes, we're out there trying to understand what that means and ensuring that people are well supported in terms of how that's going to impact their own individual business. We've worked on some support local initiatives, certainly on the rotoruanz.com. There is a locals page there now. It does direct people towards some of those local businesses. We've and continued to make sure that all those national and international relationships are maintained. In particular, we know that there's a lot of businesses have had to retrench in terms of staffing, so we've really looked to try and pick the slack up in terms of making sure that the lights are kind of kept on. We're still here. You might not be able to get to us at the moment, but you will be able to at some point in the future, and so we want to make sure that those relationships are strong and continue to be open. We've touched on the capability and sort of capacity support initiatives. They have ranged from where we've actually been loaning out staff. So I know my eyesight, Graham down at the eyesight, he goes above and beyond, and certainly if we've seen an operator or someone who's got a short-term need, we've been more than happy to kind of facilitate how we get a staff member into their business just to support those kind of short-term needs. And then finally, the organisational culture piece has been, hugely important for us. We've really invested really heavily in terms of, how we're really strengthening that, and how we're making sure that we're all on the same page in terms of the mahi that needs to be done. I think that was it from me. But we'll stop, and I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Your Worship, the Mayor.
2 questions. Have we got an updated impact of the loss of the Auckland market economically? No. Will it be assessed? I am asked that relatively frequently. Yeah.
Yep. Look, the loss is probably still in progress at the moment. So certainly we've done some further work that's looked at what the impact post-COVID has been. And I think it was probably, it's safe to say it was probably more significant than people were aware at first glance. We will continue to dig into that. I know the team are working on a piece of work around the accommodation sector at the moment to really get to right to the nitty-gritty in terms of what the data there is actually showing us.
And my other question is, are we overcoming the reputation damage that we suffered in the last quarter?
I think the simple answer there is no. We still, we still have some reputational damage to overcome in the period ahead. Yep.
And are we getting more visitors, incidentally, just coming past now that you're in the eyesight? Just people popping in for advice, or?
Yeah, look, I think there's actually been quite good feedback about that. It's interesting that, I don't want to use the kind of management jargon about collisions and things like that, but certainly you do kind of run into a bunch more people that are sort of popping their heads in to say hi, and it makes it certainly a little bit easier for them to connect across all the parts of our business.
Councillor Kaifong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, no questions from me because I actually have the opportunity to grill Andrew and John fairly regularly. But can I just say, Andrew, to you and the team, could you please pass on our congratulations for an excellent result for the year? I think, and particularly since the eyesight revenue was so severely impacted with COVID, to actually come out with a result where you've actually been able to achieve a profit is down to your leadership as well as that of John. I think too that you've done some fantastic work, and I'm sure that everyone will look forward to hearing about the destination management plan and the work that's gone into that, and also the new work that we asked you to take on in terms of the CBD project. So we look forward to hearing from you on that. But congratulations again on a very well done result in terms of both performance financially and also on your key monitoring indicators. There's no red on your chart, so well done, congratulations.
Thank you, Councillor Kaifong. Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and apologies for lateness. Andrew, thanks for your report. I just wanted to ask you about the establishment of Te Manuka. So this morning at the Chamber breakfast where Bryce and I were, the Minister talked about the growth in digital and the increasing movement of pretty much all services to a digital platform going forward. So is there any update? Has there been any progress in that initiative there? Thank you.
Through the Chair, yep, good question, Councillor. The Te Manuka framework has been an initiative we've been working with Te Arawa and Datacom on and Toi Ohomai. There was obviously there were some discussions that kind of predate my being part of the organisation in terms of Datacom looking to establish some regional hubs. We've kind of moved, I think subsequently beyond that and have really trying to form up a strong partnership where Te Arawa are actually really at the heart in terms of running and owning that entity, with Datacom actually taking far more of a technology support role. So exciting times. I would hesitate that it's not a easy project to deliver, particularly I think if we contrasted sort of the New Zealand government approach with the Australian government approach, they're quite distinct. In Australia, you typically find that a lot of government departments actually outsource a lot of that digital work. If you ring the Australian tax office, for example, you won't be talking to a government employee, you'll be talking to an outsourced employee. New Zealand government takes quite a different approach where they've typically kept a lot of that, that work in-house. And so there are some challenges in terms of how do we work through getting the core of some contract work there to make that a reality. So that's the work that's underway at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell, followed by Councillor Yates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Andrew. I just want to support the previous speakers who have really acknowledged your department that have done some tremendous work during some very challenging times, especially when I think in your report here, the Rotorua Proud campaign, the Waiariki studio. Can you tell me about the studio even during these challenging times? Is it getting a bit more use? Because I know we supported that to get involved with that too.
Yep, look, they certainly have a couple of other productions that are either about to start or are scheduled to come through that space in the next little while. The discussion with Minister Nash yesterday and the support that Kānoa have provided to the studio was a little bit around how do they advance what they've currently got and actually take it to the next step. So talking a little bit around what does phase 2 look like, which I think is really exciting. I think full credit to the Steambox Collective and everyone who's been involved in the Waiariki Film Studio. They've done an amazing job, and I think certainly the program that they put in place that was sort of supported by MSD to get a lot of our youth engaged in that sector has been fantastic. It was really encouraging to hear yesterday just how many of them are still working in that space. It's just a case of continuing to do whatever we can to build that sector and looking at the kind of the longer term growth prospects.
Thank you. Councillor Yates.
Kia ora through you, Madam Chair. Nei rā te mihi ki a koe, Andrew. I think I might have asked this question a while back too, but this is around the revitalisation of our CBD. And would Red have an appetite to consider looking at window fronts as an art gallery space, given that we don't no longer have the museum or something like that? I know that before there used to be cardboard placards put up, but with skins these days, we could really rejuvenate our whole CBD, especially in our empty shops, by honouring some of our local artists.
Look, we're always open to take any suggestions in terms of having a look at and seeing what we can do to support those. So I'm absolutely happy to take that offline. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. And Mr. Hurd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could allow me to indulge for a moment and put on a chamber hat, I'll just make a comment. I was particularly interested in the shifting the narrative and Rotorua Proud part of this discussion, because it's an area that the chamber regards as #1 priority for this city at this time. And we've been actively working in that area, in that space. As you know, the Business Awards are now scheduled for the 16th of December, and we're keeping everything crossed that we can slip through the window of opportunity there and get them away in full swing. And we've sold a record number of tickets. There's the sales pitch. But one of the things we've done, whilst waiting for the awards to take place, is using that time to develop a series of videos. We're interviewing all of the 53 finalists, all of the sponsors. Those interviews are done, videoed, and we're now putting them together in daily releases from now through to the awards on Facebook and online. And they're exactly in line with these shifting the narrative type things, because the whole objective is to present Rotorua as a great place to do business. Look what a fun time we have, and look what wonderful businesses we've got here to the world. So I'd like to work with you on that, Andrew, and I should have raised this earlier and discussed it with you. So if we could take that offline and develop it, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll definitely note that. And I did indulge it a little bit, but just a reminder that when we're at the table, we're here in our role as the elected members for the organisation. But I appreciate that's relevant, so I look forward to seeing how the Chamber and Red will work alongside each other together. We now go to Mr. Waru, followed by Councillor Wang and then Councillor McPherson.
Tēnā anō koe. E mau nei te pōtai a te arawai, tēnei ata. Thank you. Andrew, thank you for your report. Awesome. You've been busy. Been very, very, very busy. And my question is just around the destination management plan, funny enough. So we've gone through a bit of a process there, seeing as I was on the steering group. And just wondering, are there any updates as to how that's going and where to from here?
Through the Chair. So, look, we will be coming back to present, I think, at the September SPNF in terms of the final plan, which is looking pretty sharp now. In terms of nothing stands still, so we have taken the opportunity to kind of go out to recruit a sort of fixed-term role to help to facilitate delivery of that plan. And certainly some of the initiatives within it were already marching towards, how do we get those completed and underway. So, look, I think at the September SPNF, we'll look to try in November. I'm just getting... It was probably supposed to be September originally. Sorry, November meeting.
You're going back to the future, is it?
Back to the future. At the November meeting, we will look to provide an update in terms of what's already underway on that plan as well.
Kapai, and the reason I ask about that, because a lot of the things that everyone's sort of questions are alluding to in their plan, it's covered within their plan, whether it's the te reo, whether it's business, whether, all sorts, it's all in their plan. So I look forward to seeing the fruits of that mahi and the progress. Kia ora.
And there is a lot of work going on behind the scenes in a short time frame to get that, but we will have it next week. So not too long to go now. Yeah, no pressure.
Okay, I'll go wait a week.
So we go to Councillor Wang, followed by Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to say thank you for and pass on the appreciation from the Rotorua Sustainable Charter at their relaunch last night, and pass on the thanks to Joe as well, being on the board for the Charter. And I think it's really great that Red is supporting in an organisation like that in promoting sustainability within local businesses and helping to support them achieve their sustainability goals in that space as well. So just a thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Wayne. Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, the tourism expenditure metrics that are normally provided by MBIE have been suspended, and that removes a very important evidence base for work that you do. I wonder if there's any indications from MBIE when they're going to revise those metrics, if need be, and then reinstate them.
Through the Chair, yeah, good question, Councillor. They are currently, they've formed a working group up to look at how they re-look at those measures and reintroduce them. They haven't necessarily given us a time frame specifically on when that's likely to happen. I've got our team, we're fortunate to have got to a position where we are actually fully staffed, which is great. And so we have got a research and insights manager who is actually, he's been tasked to have a look at that, those data sets and understand, how do we make sure we're keeping our eye on the ball ourselves. So that's certainly something which is front and centre for us.
Thanks. My second question, if I might. Thank you, Chair. The big change that you've had to manage with the loss of international tourism has been to retask people, re-professionalise them, if you like, in a new role of land development. The CBD projects and so on are part of that. And I wondered if you can describe how that process is proceeding, how you're adding to the expertise, which in some senses must be new to Red.
So, good question. Look, we haven't retooled any of our people that were traditionally involved in the tourism space to work on land development, to be clear. We have gone to market through the later part of last year and earlier this year to build some additional capability in terms of people that have got a stronger kind of project management focus, that understand how to deal with the experts that we need to deal with from a land development perspective. We've maintained that we will stay a very lean entity in respect of that part of the business, and that it's, when you look at the ability to recruit those type of skills, the best option is to quite often think about where do you contract in for specific expertise for specific pieces of work. In terms of the remainder of the business, look, December we did shrink. We went through a process where we did shrink in terms of the number of people that were focused purely on international tourism, and we've deployed some additional skills into areas which are a little bit more kind of cross-cutting for the benefit of not just the tourism businesses but all businesses that are here in Rotorua.
I appreciate that human resource development is some of the toughest work that leaders have to provide, so all the very best. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Were there any other questions? There appear to be none. Thank you very much, Andrew. So we unfortunately don't have anyone to present for the airport report today, which is a bit unfortunate. There's the new... Yeah, I know, we would have loved to meet the new interim chief executive, who's 26 years old, quite an achievement. But I will ask that they still come back to our next meeting so that elected members still get the opportunity to ask questions of them. So the report is in here, but save those questions until next month and we'll put that invite out for them to come along. Councillor Kaifong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could I just also tender the apologies on behalf of the Chair, Peter Stubbs, and of Logan today, but there is an opportunity for councillors tomorrow to ask all of the questions that you do wish to ask around the final year-end performance at the AGM at 9 a.m. on Zoom tomorrow.
Yeah, and thank you for that reminder, Councillor Kaifong. But also there is a difference with the AGM compared to the quarterly updates that we do receive from them, and it is expected of me that people will front and be here in the public forum to be able to ask those questions too, but we totally appreciate that their AGM is tomorrow morning and elected members will still get the opportunity to talk to them before next month. Thank you, Councillor Kaifong. So we will move to the operational report for September 2021. We have about 44 more pages of that operational report, and as the CCOs are the main focus of this meeting, if you would indulge me, I'd like to suggest that we move through those group by group, and if you do have any questions, then we'll then ask the DCE to respond, but I won't get them to present to all of the items that are in this agenda. So we'll start anyway with the Organisational Enablement Group, which is on page 49 or to 50, if there were any questions on there, and I will give you time to check. Sorry, I've just been reminded by my deputy, thank you, Councillor Yates, that I need a mover and a seconder that the report operational update for September 2021 be received. Thank you. Moved Councillor Yates, seconded Mr. Waru. I put that to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. There appear to be no questions on that, so we'll move to the Community Wellbeing Group, which is on page 50 to page 62. I'll give you a minute if you have any questions. Councillor Donaldson.
Not a question, Madam Chair, but just congratulations to all concerned regarding the unveiling of the artworks at Tipu Taki o Taua. It was a stunning event and well received by the community. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely, and a special thanks to Will as well, who did an excellent job managing that project, and something that our community is and will be very proud of, so please pass that on. Go to Councillor Rokawateit, followed by Her Worship.
Yes, thank you. Look, because it was mentioned a couple of times this morning, Jocelyn's name was mentioned, being the former Community Wellbeing DC. How are we tracking there? I didn't know if that's been advertised, or if you don't mind me asking the CEO, Mr. CEO.
Through the chair, yes, that is actually out at the moment. There is a search firm undertaking some work for us at this stage as to looking to fulfil that role, and we're hoping that over the next month or so we'll be starting to get a report back from them as to the sort of interest and some suggestions as to preferred candidates.
Thank you. Your Worship, the Mayor.
This might overlap with another division, but I met the two Tuia graduates yesterday for the year, and one has gone on to join a law firm, finished a law degree, and the other is hopefully getting a job in the Māori Land Court. So they've really appreciated the staff support that they got in their orientation. They just loved the exposure to the organisation. Our challenge is we have no applicants for next year. I've asked Te Tato if you can help us, and done a bit of a video to call for applicants, but it's an amazing leadership program for them, and then when they graduate they go on to awhi the graduates for the next program. So thank you staff for helping them and making it so special for them. They learned a lot about the intricacies and the complexities of this place. So thank you everybody.
Thank you. Councillor Yates.
Kia ora, and through you, Madam Chair, I'd just like to acknowledge this report, and like Dave too, acknowledge Will and the team who worked tirelessly to support the whakairo and beautiful art pieces at Te Pūtake o Taua, and also to acknowledge Stuart whilst he's in the room, with the endeavours that are happening at Shimpak, and also with the arduous endeavours that are happening around the museum at the moment. But it's just really an acknowledgement of everything that's going on in the arts area. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Councillor Yates, and yes, there is a significant amount going on, but very exciting times for the community. Mr Waru, followed by Councillor Bentley.
I'm not too sure you can answer this question, but you know, the mural, Merata Mita mural, beautiful.
Yeah.
How many other spaces do we have in town here that we could possibly do something with? And hopefully put some of our own people in there as well.
I think that's a good whittle to lay on the challenge. We could get our staff to investigate what other opportunities there may be. Yep.
Thank you.
Councillor Bentley.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. My question relates to, on page 53, under animal control, and the first item they're saying here is they're doing door-to-door dog registration follow-ups. It sounds a bit like the Stasi, doesn't it, coming around and checking. I wonder if they're doing motel to motel as well, because I'm damn sure that most of those dogs that are in the motels aren't registered.
That's not a question.
We'll pass that on to check. I think it has, I'm sure it's been investigated previously as well, but we will pass on that feedback and reminder. Thank you. Now, were there any other questions for the Community Wellbeing Group, page 50 to 62?
Go.
There appear to be none, so we'll move to Infrastructure and Environment Solutions Group, which is page 62 to 71. Councillor Okawate.
Thank you. Just wanted to ask the question around the joint consent for Taniwha Springs with Ngāti Rangiwewehi. Yes, has that actually been granted, or has it just been submitted? I'm not sure.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Barnard. Yes, the consent has been granted with some conditions, and now we're working through with Ngāti Rangiwewehi to give effect to some 4 cultural impact reports that only Mana Whenua can produce. But certainly the consent has been granted, and now we will produce these reports to ensure that we are able to start construction and installation of the puna.
Thank you. I think that is a milestone. Kia ora, thank you.
That's a huge milestone, and there were certainly a few tears when that vote was passed. So great to have that update. Any other questions for our Infrastructure and Environment Solutions? Your Worship, the Mayor.
Really a question, but it is a delight now to see how the opening up of Tino Road, which is Waka Kotahi, but it is we're starting to see it now, joined up in the cycleway, and that it is lovely. I don't know if it's reduced the time to get from A to B, but it must have. It's flowing so smoothly. I'm on the regional committee tomorrow, and I'll be passing that through to Waka Kotahi when they report.
Thank you. Councillor Yates.
Through you, Madam Chair, this will be for Stavros, but it is just an update. I know that we get our heads up, and I know that there has been some media coverage around this, but this is to do with the recent geothermal activity and the offlow that is going into the Utahina.
Through you, Madam Chair, I presume the media coverage about geothermal activity, you mean the last couple of incidents, one in Kuro Park and one behind the Sportstrom and EEC. I think so. The comment I would make at this point in time is that we are sitting on the geothermal area. We have boreholes. Those boreholes are serviced by certain facilities like steel casings and other equipment, which obviously get affected by the geothermal and the sulfur into the process, and occasionally we get some breakages. We don't see anything unusual. GNS reports do not report to us anything unusual in the geothermal fluidity of the area. But it's just a strong reminder, obviously, that any system or any facility that's been installed needs regular upgrades and renewals and maintenance to make sure that wear and tear are adjusted to.
Thank you. Councillor Kaifong, followed by Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for Stavros. Just with the introduction of the new Water Services Act, does that kind of mean business as usual for us, or will there be operational implications or additional costs with the new standards and rules?
Through you, Madam Chair, obviously the Water Services Bill or Act imposes some stricter compliance obligations by water providers. You will know that for the last 2-3 years, our efforts or your investment into drinking water supplies have ensured that we've met all our supplies. We meet our standards. And I think you should also be, to a degree, proud that you are one of the few water suppliers across the country that actually meets those standards. Now, with regards to how those, the Act will apply into non-public entities, private water supplies, we're still work in progress. So we'll be waiting for the regulator to give us some advice. And I think that'll be part and parcel of the Three Waters reforms and how this be affected. So we'll be working with the Department of Internal Affairs to that effect to understand the implications of that.
Thanks, Davos.
Thank you. Councillor McPherson.
Thanks. This question, through you, Chair, this question follows the last answer in a sense, particularly given that Stavros and our Chief Executive provide liaison for us at a national level with regard to Three Waters. I look at the report here on the way in which Waka Kotahi does its work. It reconciles demands at national, regional and district level for services, and it somehow weighs up the priorities and then allocates funding and then manages that entire process in collaboration with regional and district authorities. And I wondered, this is the question, I wondered if in the context of the consultations on Three Waters, if that model, that governance and management model had been seriously considered as an alternative to the Three Waters structures. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor McPherson. I think what you just outlined there is basically the foundational principle of our position that you have adopted a few months ago with regards to Three Waters, where we have said that, in broad lines, the benefits of synergies and scale, are understandable, subject to some detail about the numbers. However, our strong reservations were and continue to be how our local strategic objectives can be given effect by these proposed new entities. We continue to advocate, and I think the Minister made some positive comments in that respect, that they need to review the model of governance and local voices into these three entities and the methodology by which our local strategic objectives are reflected into those entities' future work programs. We actually have taken the liberty to start producing a draft service level agreement between this council and these potential new entities. We share that draft framework with representatives of the Department of Internal Affairs, and I think our view will continue to be that we will advocate for and strongly insist that those entities, once they sit, they really need to demonstrate that they are slaving to the aspirations of our local needs and our local priorities. And I think, in summary, it will be imperative that no matter what the governance arrangements will be eventually, if they can demonstrate through our business planning that they are taking into consideration what we ask them to do in our local authority, in our local area, and demonstrate a compliance and a progress in that direction, that will be the number one priority we'll give in our future recommendations to how we proceed with it.
And I'll just ask the Worship the Mayor to add some comments to that too. Yeah.
Yes, there's been quite a different reaction around the country, as we've all noted, when the Minister mandated that the bill will come into the House. We have a preliminary position and we had good discussion there. I feel it would be pertinent for us as councillors, elected members, to have a review of our preliminary position. Are there issues arising that we want to feed into the working party? And I think I've asked that come forward at a future committee of council. We all need to just get our heads around it. What are our issues now that this has been announced, and there is a working party being formed by LG&Z. What do we want to tell them, and what is our view, Rotorua Council's view? It's not right that I speak for that. I feel all elected members should have a say.
Through you, Chair. Thank you for that. I would look forward to that opportunity enormously, and thank you for the comments from Stavros. Good.
Thank you. Councillor Wang.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also just like to say the partial opening of the Nongataha roundabout has been really appreciated by the Western Road residents. And they really appreciate the reduced traffic on their road, but also the timeliness in getting into town and out north as well. But my question was just around the rural school road safety projects and how they were progressing, such as Nakuru School.
Thank you, Councillor Wang. I think we note in the report here too that the contractors and the design being completed, and the contractors are in the process of being put in place to give effect to those works in the summer period. So we are progressing on that to finish hopefully a lot of that work this side of Christmas.
Thank you. Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wish to pass on through Stavros a bouquet for the rubbish truck operator yesterday in our street, where we've had a very sad occasion with our neighbour. He saw that there was a bit of an issue going on, and he parked his truck up on Devon Street and walked out and got all the rubbish bins, which was a bit above and beyond, I thought. So good on him.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bentley, for raising that. We'll certainly make sure that those thanks are passed on to him. Thank you. Well, that appears to be all the questions, so we will move to district leadership. Oh, sorry, does someone else have a question? Mr. Wadu.
Tēnā koe te tiamana te paku noa. Just, most people asked my questions, but I had one more. It was around the refuse. If you go back a while back, we had that kōrero from Regan and them about splitting up our compostable waste and all that stuff. I have not heard anything since. So just, Stavros, is there anything progressing there? Kia ora.
Through you, Madam Chair, Mr. Waru, I think we have heeded the Council's support to explore that, what they call food and organic waste, separations. We still intend to come back to you with a comprehensive report early in the new calendar year, in order to allow us to make a more informed recommendation to you. We are in the market at the moment through a request for expressions of interest to identify parties that maybe wish to be involved in setting up the facilities for composting. We are really aiming to see whether the private sector or any other groups, including manufacturing groups who have expressed an interest, are interested to invest into that capability and the capacity. So when we come back to you early next calendar year, we will be able to tell you exactly who and when and what the costs would be, so we can inform the community about the final recommendations of the Council and obviously the resolutions you may take resulting from that with that information in hand.
Thank you, Stavros, and I look forward to that, because it's a big one. And I still have that presentation from way back, and I still go over it and we're waiting on that one, and a lot of the iwi organisations and stuff, into protecting te Māori, me te mana o te whenua, all this kind of stuff, will be interested too. So, kei te mihi atu kia koe, and the last point was, I always have to ask Stavros a question, so that's why I had to find a question. Kia ora.
Kia ora, and we'll take one final question from Councillor Bentley.
Thank you for letting me have another snap at it. Just a question for Stavros. I know that the vermicasting people were very interested in coming along and presenting to us. Quite a while ago, they sent a letter. I'm wondering if they have been offered or are interested in doing our green waste recycling.
Yes, Councillor Bedley, EcoCast, and the casting operators are all part of that expression of interest and working through with them at the moment to make sure that we get final recommendations from them. It'd be fantastic if we were able to set up in the district of Rotorua an alternative composting facility, including perhaps the same operators, but also including other local players that will achieve close to 46% of diversion of our waste from our waste stream.
Thank you very much. We'll move to District Leadership and Democracy Group on page 71 to 72. If there are any questions, Councillor Kawate.
Thank you. Yes, it is around the representation review, and we had a total of 161 submissions, which actually surprises me a little bit because it's not really very much when you think of 6 years ago. And this time, of course, was the Māori wards, and yet there wasn't really any substantial increase. So, but I just haven't. It is a concern because of what we heard, and the submissions, etc., and particularly the oral presentations. It could change the final model. So if we're looking to the 16th when we have to advise what we're going to go with. So we're coming pretty hard up against the wire there. So my question, I suspect, is to you or to Una, Madam Chair, about how we're placed to ensure we have the time to look at and discuss.
Me with some questions which have required us going back through to the Local Government Commission and also to consult with our lawyers. I've got a series of information back which I need to bring back to you all. So we are having a look at setting up another forum and then needing to turn the direction from yourselves from that forum into an opportunity in an SPNF for you to consider all of the feedback and the questions that you've asked. And then to turn that around very quickly into a decision in which you can notify on the 19th of November the final model for your representation review. So yes, you are correct, Councillor Rokawate, the time frame is very, very tight and we are working very quickly to get the information turned around and brought back to you.
Might then necessitate a special SPNF. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McPherson.
Thank you. My first question has just been answered. My second question concerns the phase, the objection stroke appeal phase. How will that unfold? Thank you.
So, under the guidance of the Local Electoral Act, we are required to notify by public notice that Council have adopted a final model. That public notice will set an opening date and a closing date in which those that were part of the initial submission, so if you were an individual or an entity or a group that submitted to the Council's initial proposal, you may choose to object to that. Objections are, if we receive any, are received here by Council, but at that point in time, if any are received, Council is obligated to send all of those direct to the Local Government Commission, and it then becomes their process.
Supplementary to that, that's very helpful. Thank you for that. Can I suggest that explanation you've just given of that process be added to the current explanation on Council's website? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I think there's a question to you. Somewhere I might have missed it, but is this the last meeting for the year for SPNF? I don't have some dates in December. Are you able to enlighten me?
Yes. So, as what usually happens with very busy years, the governance team always attempt to try and keep December free, but as as the year unfolds and the work program develops, there are things that do need to be decided upon and finalised by the end of the year. So we have included a couple of extra meetings in December. We have one set down for early in December, which at this stage is earmarked to be a combined operations and monitoring report followed by an SPNF. That operations and monitoring report is intended for the organisation to share with you progress and highlights of the things that have been achieved in the calendar year. So taking a sort of a similar approach as to what you've seen today from the CCOs, where they have highlighted what they've achieved and progressed during the year. And then there will be a few things that are still on the work program that need to be signed off and finalised by the SPNF committee. And we, in order to then finish the committee cycle, there is a council meeting set down for the 16th of December, I believe it is.
Thank you very much, Runa. Any questions for the Te Aroha Partnership Group, page 72? Yes, Councillor Rakawate.
Sorry to seem to be hogging the limelight a bit here. Look, it's just around the rating of Māori land. There have been some, and I've looked at it, some benefits for particularly multiple-owned Māori land. When, how will they find out about the changes? How are we going to get this information out to the owners of Māori land?
Our team has started, tēnā tātou. Our team has started presenting to protocol meetings and letting some of the iwi entities know. In addition, we're intending to write to all of the large landowners, as well as social media campaign and leaflets downstairs.
Thank you for that update. Mr. Waru.
Tēnā koe, Gina. Nā, taku pātai, hangai ana ki te acquisition, land acquisition nei, and looking for the history. What does that mean? Can you sort of, reviewing land acquisition history for a number of sites in the urban area, Tāwi, Tuhine, are you able to sort of elaborate more on that, please?
So we often get a number of inquiries, both from within council and outside of council, whenever there is a transaction. So that may be when there is when land is being sold, which belongs to council, or even long-term leases and other arrangements. Generally, our staff do try to inquire as to how land was acquired by the council, so that we can talk to the right people. Sometimes it's a Public Works Act taking, and the information is provided to go and talk to the original owners. Sometimes it's gifting. So there's a range of ways in which council has acquired land, and so those inquiries come across council from almost every team asking how was land acquired, so that they can engage with the correct people.
Ka pai. So I take it then that the disposal of assets, land assets policy is working together with this mahi?
There is always a land acquisition report if land is disposed of, which looks at the status of the land, how it was acquired, whether there are any leases or other arrangements that affect it today.
Ka pai. Tēnā koe. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McPherson.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair. Could I ask if there's any updates available on the access of mana whenua to the Pukehangi Pā / Urupa? Thank you.
I can assist there. That was discussed at an MOU meeting that we had, and they're content with the process. Gina gave an update at their own MOU meeting.
Just for those elected members who may not recall the details, so there is a PAR site. It sits on private land. It is adjacent to another block of privately owned land, which had a requirement to provide access to Ngāti Kia Ro, Ngāti Tuara. Access is provided. It's not easily
provided though, and so there is quite a technical process for the hapu to obtain a key and access to the pā when it's required. So there were some discussions last year with the adjoining landowners. We're limited in what we can do because it is a privately owned site, but council does have influence within the community, and so we were assisting with the discussions. I don't have the latest on that at the moment, but I'm sure that if there was an issue or if there's something we could do to assist, I would know about it. So that's the best I can provide today. I can find out further detail.
Thank you.
And we'll now move to District Development Group on page 74 until page 79. Councillor Okawatate.
Thank you. It's in relation to the new requirements for intensification. This doesn't just apply to inner city, does it? This has the potential to be in our residential areas as well. Thank you, because I think this is going to be quite far-reaching. I mean, you hear it already around the country, but I just wanted to make sure that this isn't just applicable to the inner city.
Through you, Madam Chair. Just good afternoon, everyone. That's correct. It applies to our entire urban area that is delineated under our Tier 2 urban form status. So that applies to the city with its current city boundary and Nongataha.
Can I ask just a further question? So do we have to make application to say that we're going to avail ourselves of this intensification Tiers 2?
The legislation is obviously targeted at Tier 1 councils, and there's a list of those in the information. It does have a clause in there which indicates that the ministers can determine if there is an acute housing needs in a Tier 2 urban area, that they can be included within legislation. We've also been advised by the minister and officials that we can also request to be included within that Tier 1 status as well. So we've got a report coming to you next week, just talking about where we're up to on our various National Policy Statement urban development requirements, and obviously also our HBA, and we'll be providing you some additional information about this bill and its potential implications for our community if we choose to seek to participate, or if we're instructed that we will be participating.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Waru.
Tēnā koe, JP. Good to see you walking around. Hoi no, taku pātai hangai ana ki te building consents. So thank you for the information that's in there. What's the, up to this time now for the year, what's the total number of consents? Do you have that on hand?
No, I don't have it on.
That's only for this month, eh?
Yeah. Now, just on that, and it's certainly a piece that we're actually trying to improve. So one of the things I'm looking to bring in is we obviously get this monthly snapshot or quarterly snapshot in comparison to last year. But actually, what's really important is to see the cumulative change and what's happening across a year. So you've highlighted something that we were just trying to put together a nice graphic to start bringing into these agendas. So thank you for that nudge, and we'll have that in place for next O&M meeting. I would just reference something that appears on page 75. If you also see there the number of building consents issued for 2021 or 2020 and 21 full year, 1,223. Please just remember that's not just for buildings or commercial buildings. It includes fireplaces, it includes retaining walls. There's a whole sewage connections. There's a whole range of building consents that are issued in that space. So that's why that number is quite significant for a year.
Thank you, JP, and yeah, I'm glad I was able to help you out with a nudge. But you know, just talking about that, fully aware of that. You know, that they're all different consents, and that I was just more interested in the new dwellings rather, and it'd be good to have a percentage of how many consents have been granted versus how many actually, and that's translated into a dwelling and people living in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Final question from Her Worship.
Stavros as well about the Housing Acceleration Fund, and we'll hear about it in December, hopefully, successfully, hopefully. don't know. But does a position on on the three waters have an impact on whether or not we get that money? It's not. It's untangled from that.
As far as I can advise Council at this point in time, the Three Waters is not connected to any of the Infrastructure Acceleration Fund. Bearing in mind that whatever new assets will create, they will require an ongoing maintenance, operation, renewal and upgrade in the future, and obviously the potential new entities will take them over.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that concludes our operational report. I now would like to advise that there is one report for consideration in our public excluded session, which is a contract update. The reasons for going into confidential to discuss this are because of commercial sensitivity. So I'd now like to ask him for a mover and a seconder that Council move into public excluded session. Moved Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Thank you. I'll just check that our live stream is switching off.